Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Oh shit!
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You hear me?
Beautiful. I can
All
hear
right.
you.
Hey, this is a first.
It's
we
a
have
first.
never opened with the maiden.
We have never opened with the maiden before, but we are at 769 strong in the YouTube chat to start the show, 327 in the Rumble chat. Folks, thank you very much for being here this evening. We appreciate you all very much here at our regular Sunday 7 p.m. time slot here at the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
Now, the reason I asked if Russell can hear me is because there is a possibility of tech issues tonight. Just be forewarned. We had some before the show. In my neck of the woods, we are expecting 7 inches of rain overnight. 7 inches of rain. So we are going to experience some shit here over the next 7 or 8 hours. And so that might be causing some internet issues. I had some tech issues coming in. The videos weren't playing right. I got booted out. So if we are a little wonky tonight, please bear with us. That is the reason why. There's nothing we could do. Despite the tropes, all anti-Semitic tropes aside, we do not control the weather. And so there's nothing really we could do about that. But we will do our best for you guys to make the best of this. Beautiful. Exactly. Exactly. We just do one thing here.
Beating president.
All right.
New numbers from.
I can see the video. I can hear the video. That was what I was worried about. During the countdown video, just the sound totally cut out on my end. I could not hear any of the music. I couldn't hear the intro, so I was worried that we might be totally
That's weird.
Yeah, very weird. But I could hear Joe and Mika. I've never been so happy to hear Joe and Mika in my life, I got to tell you.
You're probably the first people to ever be happy to hear Joe
Not
and
common that I've been happy to hear the sound of Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. But I was happy just now that we did our little live check. Yo, I saw there's a video. We're talking about doing these flashback segments like we did a Hitchens Kissinger segment. There was a segment I saw with Zbigniew Brzezinski challenging Joe Scarborough on the Israel-Palestine issue with Mika sitting right next to him. I guess that was before they hooked up. That was back when they were just like colleagues.
Right.
But Mika's father...
Before they went all 50 Shades of Washington.
Yeah, exactly. Mika's father sitting across from Joe Scarborough with Mika right next to him being like, you don't know anything about this issue. You're totally ignorant. I could tell. Pretty funny stuff.
Was he finger fucking her under the table?
Maybe there was a role playing, but that was before they went public.
These elites, you never know what they're getting up to.
That's true. Never know. Folks, pardon me. We got almost 1,000, over 1,000 of you guys in here now. We want to remind everybody that tonight is Sunday, which means we will be doing a post-show question and answer hangout over on Rumble immediately following the conclusion of this program. So if you don't follow us on Rumble, go to rumble.com/do dissidents and hang out with us there after the show. There was a little confusion I noticed in the chat last week a couple people thought that the Rumble Q&A is for paid members only. No, the Q&A is open to everybody. Paid members just have call-in access. They can call in and talk to us.
Anyone can watch it. Yeah.
But anyone can watch it. So, yes, please feel free, whether you're a paid member or not, go to rumble.com/DoDissidents after the conclusion of the show, where this stream will continue with a Q&A talk back sort of after party hangout. If you're watching on Rumble now, you don't have to go anywhere. Just stay right where you are. There will be a 5-minute intermission, and we will continue the show on Rumble afterwards. Okay.
All right. We want to get to our program note, our mea
Let's get
culpa.
to our one program note. We want to apologize for our boomerism on the last show.
Yes. We are both, relative to me, Keaton is young, but he's not a young man. He's got back problems. Mm-hmm. He's got a goiter.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know any better than I do who this woman is. So last week we were like, who is she? She's some woman who got lucky on Instagram and just made total idiots out of ourselves, apparently, because she is actually a quite successful singer that was discovered on X Factor, recruited by Simon Cowell.
He's talking about Lauren Jericho. I haven't said her name yet. Nobody knows who you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, but I'm sharing the screen so you can see. You can see Lauren Jericho.
There you go.
Am I saying it right? Lauren Jericho. So
it was Haragui. That's what somebody corrected us on the pronunciation.
Haragui?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. So she is of Cuban descent, but she's born and raised from Miami. And now she's solo. And actually, we were talking about this before we went on. It's kind of interesting because I took a look at her politics. And a lot of I wrote an article arguing, and I've just made this case on the show a lot, that a lot of the kind of woke Zers and college students wound up for the establishment being the Frankenstein that broke its chains, who, had politics that really didn't threaten power, politics about LGBTQ rights, things that they were perfectly happy with. Amazon will put up that rainbow flag all day long. But then this war broke out, and people like Miss Haragui, am I saying it right? Haragui, flipped. Looking at her history of activism, at least what I saw, there. I'm certainly not an expert. There's a cursory examination, but it sounds very conventional, very Libby. Trump is the Antichrist, and big anti-Trump activism and LGBTQ, and she identifies as bisexual and gender fluid and so on, if I understand correctly. And that's all well and good, but it's not the kind of thing that was gonna piss off anybody, right? And I think for a lot of people like her, when Palestine happened, to their credit, they really followed through on some of the core ideas beyond what I think a lot of people consider kind of superficial virtue signaling, and really have stepped up to the plate, as Marianne discovered to her sadness and humiliation when she was interviewed. So kudos to her.
Kudos to her, and we apologize for saying she won the Instagram lotto. Apparently, she's a big star, and we're just too old to know.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we missed it.
Let's have a round of applause for Jake, our producer in the booth tonight. He's fielding Rumble rants. We got some super chats coming in. Thank you guys very much for all of those. Those are super helpful. Let's start the program tonight. We've been tracking Biden versus Trump polling lately. The story of the past few months has been a complete collapse in polling for Joe Biden, thanks mostly to young voter support and Arab voter support disappearing by the day, it seems. And so there's a new batch of polling out.
Haven't seen Nick in a while. If you all like our theme song, say hi. That's where it came from.
Yes. What's up, Nick? Thanks for Nick and Volkstead for being here. It's the first time we've seen your name. You usually went by a different name, but thank you, Nick. Appreciate that. So the story of the past few months has obviously been an implosion of support for Joe Biden amongst young voters and Arab voters, which is really leading to leads for Trump across the board, both in the nationwide popular vote and in several critical swing states. And so Morning Joe looked into this polling. So we're going to see the new poll numbers and the reaction from the pollster. This was a Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. So let's go to Joe and Mika for this.
Beating President Joe Biden in 7 swing states, including 6 won by the sitting president in 2020. According to the new numbers from Morning Consult and Bloomberg, Trump holds a 4-point lead over Biden in Arizona, a 6-point lead in Georgia, 4 points in Michigan, 3 points in Nevada, 2 points in Pennsylvania, 4 points in Wisconsin. Those in addition to a 9-point lead for Trump in North Carolina, a state he won by less than a point in 2020. The new survey also shows Trump with a 7-point victory across all those battleground states when third-party candidates are included on the ballot. Joining us now, White House reporter for Bloomberg, Akayla Gardner, with more on these poll numbers. Akayla, what stood out to you?
I think what stood out to me the most was definitely when those declared third-party candidates and independent candidates were added in, Trump's lead extends to 7 points. So we specifically asked voters about Jill Stein, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Cornel West. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. by far had the most support at 9%. And I think this really underscores some of Democrats' worst fears. They had fear that some of these candidates were going to pull away voters from Joe Biden, of course, and this poll at least suggests that they will. But we have seen Democratic efforts to push back against some of these candidates. We've seen some PACs like Move On.
I'm sorry, push back against some of which candidates? The candidates who are polling single digits or the candidate who's beating Joe Biden? Because usually, I mean, I don't know. I don't get paid the big bucks to do this. But usually you go after the person who has more support than you, not the person who has less support than you, right? When somebody stands in the middle of the stage at the primary debate, right, that's the person who gets all the incoming, right? You don't attack the person who's polling at 2 or 3 or even 9 points if you're Joe Biden. You would try and make the case that you're better for the country than Donald Trump. But of course, he can't do that. They've run out of arguments, as we've been tracking over the past several weeks, not just in terms of foreign policy, but they have no economic argument. James Carville, we did a big segment on that. He is resigned to just saying, look, I can't convince people of the truth if they don't want to see it. That's it.
God damn it.
God damn it.
Americans don't realize how goddamn good they have. God damn it, the thing they do.
That's it. That's all they have.
Well, Keaton, if I might suggest, hey, maybe that's why you're schlepping on YouTube and these people are getting paid millions of dollars to talk shit on Morning Joe because, maybe they know something you don't.
Well,
maybe they have their finger on the real pulse of political reality.
Let's see. Let's let her finish.
On the Iron Pack, basically arguing that these candidates do not have a path to the presidency. Move On also debated no labels, which could also put out a candidate in early 2024. And that just adds to the worries that if more candidates, third-party candidates specifically, add to this race, that it could eventually hurt Joe Biden.
It's just amazing how no one bothers to make a case for Joe Biden against Donald Trump. And when you look at the way the establishment feels about Israel-Palestine, you even have never-Trump liberals like Mike Rappaport saying, I might have to vote for Pig Dick Donald Trump over Joe Biden. Like, they are just not bothering to make a case that Biden is better for the country than Trump because they have no case to make. Like, they are acting as if this is no longer a game of addition. They're acting as if this is a game of subtraction. In other words, their polling is fixed at what they feel it needs to be where the third party's not in the race, right? If Joe Biden, is at 46 points without RFK, Jill Stein, Cornell in the race, and he drops down to 42 with them in the race, they feel like the only thing they can do is knock Jill Stein, Cornel West, and RFK out of the race, get him back up to 46, and hope Trump falls below there. They're not acting as if there's any room to grow.
Right.
Because there is no room to grow, and they're not even making a case. They have no case to make on any front whatsoever. I've never seen a campaign so completely paralyzed as this one.
Well, it's also because we've arrived at a moment that societies throughout history, sometimes democracies, sometimes not, have arrived at, where the collapse in legitimacy of the government is so severe that the people cannot be won over anymore. This is when the powerful just become an object of satire, derision, laughter. It's when you get to that point that the people have nothing left for you but mockery, it's over. They arrived there before the French Revolution. They arrived there before the collapse of the Eastern Bloc and the Soviet Union. And we've arrived here now. It's not just something that happens in democracies. It's something that seems to always precede the end of the total collapse of authority. So picking Donald Trump, I've said nobody really had a positive case for Joe Biden. People don't really, he's got his fans, but people don't really have a positive case for Donald Trump either. Donald Trump, that's like, let's elect a pig. Let's elect a pig. That'll show him what we think of him. Let's elect a pig. That's what Donald Trump is for people. And last time, that feeling was limited to Republicans, to disaffected working class. Now when you see assholes like Mike Rappaport singing that song, it's spreading to the PMCs. There are a certain number of the PMCs are starting to feel this way too. And at that point, you've really lost the game because that's your backbone. The PMCs are all they had left.
Yeah, at that point, you're just getting flooded from every direction. Like, I think the MAGA base, it's not just a cult of personality. I mean, there's obviously some of that. There's some of that with every candidate, right?
Sure.
But I think a lot of the hardcore MAGA base see Trump as a counterweight to not just Joe Biden, but to Anthony Blinken, to Jake Sullivan, right? To Matthew Miller. Like, anybody who's tuned in really knows that's who's running the country right now. And they know that they want World Wars 3 and 4 at the same time, which I guess would be folded into one if they happen simultaneously. And they see Trump as really the only thing that can get in the way of that. So, like, to the extent that they actually trust him to engineer some new political future, some new vision for America and the world, some of them feel that way. But I think a lot of them see him as, ironically, the same way the powers that be saw him while he was president, as this big fucking thing in their way that they can't push out of their way. And to a lot of people, that's not only good enough, that's actually necessary.
Some do see him that way, but if you realistically look at the way he governed, yes, he did throw a few wrenches in the war machine. He was also very accommodating to those hedge fund managers and Wall Street thieves that he said he was going to take to task.
In
the end, he really did not act against the interests of, traditional neoconservative Republicans. He was more reticent on war. That much is true. But he certainly was not... If he had had manners on Twitter, the press would have been fine with him. They gave him that moment. I've said this before. When he bombed Syria, there was that moment. Oh, he became president tonight. The press was making an overture to him. Okay, let's start over, and we'll give you the George Bush hand job if you just shut up and stop calling us the enemy of the people. And he wouldn't play. He wouldn't play, and that was it. But in terms of his policies, he really, except in that one area, which I grant you is an important area, was not much different from any of his Republican predecessors. Tax cuts for the rich, nothing for the poor. So, yes, he has his fans, unlike Joe Biden, who I have yet to meet a literal Joe Biden fan who was under 70 years old. I've never met someone under 70 who actually had a positive feeling about Joe Biden. But I think when you're talking about the underlying psychological, Jungian, unconscious impulse that is giving him these poll numbers, I think it's let's elect a pig and run it in a limousine through Washington to show the system what we think of it. I think there's more of that on a visceral level than, well, Trump is better on war. I don't think there's as much of that kind of a thought out case as there is that impulse to just absolutely spit in the face of the establishment.
Fair enough. Ruthless criticism. Thanks for the $5. You wish you had first world infrastructure that could stand up to rain. Yes, I certainly do. Certainly do.
I was just watching a video. I got to look into whether this is true. It was a video about how much of America's water is either dangerous or right on the edge of being dangerous. And they actually talked about how much of it went back to infrastructure. And they mentioned in passing, it wasn't the focus of the video, that we have like 188 bridge failures a year on average. And I was like, what? Really? I'm going to look this up. You would think you'd hear about it if you have that many bridge failures.
Yeah, that's a lot for sure. Gelperman. Thanks for the $5. The way Bill Maher talks about women, you just know he got beat up by a girl when he was in school. Apparently that girl was a Palestinian. Thanks, you Gelperman. And welcome. I don't believe I've seen you here before. Thank you very much. Eric Rousseau, member for 4 months. What's up with the U.S. Senate gay porn session? A symbol of what they are doing to us. We don't even merit a reach around like a living wage. Yeah, man, that was something, man. You didn't even get that on January 6th. They didn't even bother to shoot a gay porn movie on January 6th. I'm sure the January 6th people thought they, had covered everything. But that's something they did not get to. I don't know if we are allowed to cover that on YouTube, are we? I never looked into the rules around gay pornography because I just assumed we weren't in that business and that would never come up. But you never know. You never know. You never know what's going to happen.
If we present it as a brave and stunning cultural statement, it'll probably just boost our numbers. Right?
Maybe. I think the guy did get fired.
We'll get a grant.
Grassy Knoll, thanks for the $4. Appreciate that. The WikiLeaks fan. Hi, WikiLeaks fan. Greetings from Michigan. Not sure if it's only me, but I feel awful guilty that my tax money is killing children in Gaza, and I don't know what to do about that. No, you're not alone, of course.
Get a good accountant and a few $1 million. You won't have to pay any taxes.
Yeah. Do it by the books. Do it legally, but take advantage of the system. Legally. Yeah, legally, right. Alrighty. Speaking of wealth and taxes and money, we have a story here that Russell is going to quarterback about homelessness rates. Always a fun topic, but Russell, take this away.
All right. So homelessness, we decided, because I'm so bouncy, I should do the homelessness story to bring the humor to it. U.S. homelessness hits highest level as rents have soared. I thought we were having this great economy. Keaton, what happened?
Yeah, no, people don't know it. That's why they're not paying their rent because
they have it.
Yeah, they have it in their mind that the rent is too expensive and that they can't afford houses. I don't know because that's not actually a thing, but apparently they think it. They're manifesting it. Like that movie. What was it? Sphere, the book, the Michael Crichton book.
Yeah, right. What you visualize.
What you visualize comes to be. So if you think the rent is going to go up 25%, it does. It's their fault for thinking of it.
A lot of these people, they just want to live by the beach. Yeah, that's how they live by the beach. They set up a towel tent. It's very nice.
Yeah.
As housing in the U.S. has become increasingly unaffordable over the past few years, the number of people experiencing homelessness surged to its highest level on record this year, according to an annual survey taken in January. The number of unhoused people, I'm going to say homeless. Every time I see that, I'm going to say homeless, because that is one of the dumbest examples of language engineering I have ever seen. It literally means the same fucking thing. It is literally exactly the same meaning. The number of homeless people in the United States jumped by 12% early this year from the year before, an increase of about 70,650 people, according to an annual report from HUD released on Friday. Known as a point-in-time estimate, the annual snapshot looks at the number of individuals nationwide who are living in shelters, temporary housing, and unsheltered settings on one night last January. The report found that more than 650,000 people were experiencing homelessness. Oh, thank you. That night, the most since reporting began in 2007. Homelessness is solvable and should not exist in the United States, said HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge in a statement. We've made positive strides, but there is still more work to be done. This data underscores the urgent need for support for proven solutions and strategies that help people quickly exit homelessness and that prevent homelessness in the first place. Homelessness increased nationwide across all household types, the report found, but had an outsized impact on communities of color. While black people make up about 13% of the U.S. population, they comprise 37% of people experiencing homelessness and 50% of the people who are experiencing homelessness as a member of a family with children. The Asian or Asian American population saw the biggest increase in the rate of homelessness between 2022 and 2023, with a 40% increase. About 3,313 more Asian and Asian American people were homeless. The biggest numerical growth in people experiencing homelessness was among Latinos. There were 28% more Latinos who were unhoused in 2023 than the year prior. This population made up 55% of the total increase in U.S. homelessness, with 39,106 additional Latinos without housing this year. Now, I'm curious whether that's because of the border crisis. I don't know, but I am assuming that has something to do with it. I was a little disappointed this article didn't clarify that. The survey also found a sharp jump in the number of people who became homeless for the first time. Between federal fiscal year 2021 and 2022, the number of people who became newly homeless increased by 25%, even as the number of people who exited homelessness to permanent housing increased by 8%, according to the HUD report. This rise is the result of a combination of factors, according to HUD. Rent has climbed significantly over the past few years.
That'll do it.
By November, you think? By November of this year, I can't believe what the median is. By November of this year, the national median asking rent in the U.S. was beginning to come down some, but it is still 22% higher than it was in November 2019 before the pandemic housing boom, according to Redfin. And the median asking rent for all apartments was just 4% below the $2,054 record high hit in August 2022. I can't believe that's the national average.
Yeah.
Like, that's getting into like New York rent.
Yeah.
It's
like New York rent. It's unbelievable. That's like $24,000 a year now. And as rents increase alongside inflation, what do we have? We have spiking credit card debt as well, which means people's credit scores are taking a hit, which makes it harder to find a new apartment when you get priced out of the one you're already in. And that's where, to play devil's advocate and somewhat defend the choice of the word unhoused, a lot of people are choosing to be a homeless just because it's just too much of a hassle and too expensive to get a place, right? Which I understand. That's a distinction without a difference. But it is a situation where, like, you have a lot of people now who are choosing to do, what a friend of ours did. I won't say his name in case he doesn't want it said, but, fuck it, pack it up, hit the road, be a nomad. You know what I mean? Like, people are choosing to do that now because they're just getting priced out of their places.
To live in RVs, campers.
Exactly.
Yeah. In addition, the HUD report found in 2022, the winding down of pandemic protections and programs focused on preventing evictions may also have contributed to more people finding themselves homeless in the first month of 2023. Quote, we must address the main driver of homelessness and housing instability, the gap between low incomes and rent costs. These people, I can see why they get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
Said Peggy Bailey, vice president.
To solve the problem of people not having enough money to pay for
people
rent.
Don't seem to have enough money to pay the rent, and we think that has something to do with homelessness. Mm-hmm. In the nearly 1 year since the HUD count was conducted, the administration has taken several steps aimed at preventing homelessness and supporting the unhoused. Through implementation of the Housing Supply Action Plan, more apartments are on track to be built this year than any year on record. This week, HUD announced that it has helped more than 424,000 households connect to homeless support services.
Oh, that's good.
Exit homelessness or avoid homelessness altogether in 2023. Earlier this month, the VA announced that it has housed more than 38,000 homeless veterans. So, yeah, I told somebody, because my rent, because I've been in the same building for 17 years and we have rent stabilization in New York, my rent is really unusually low. I always tell people I would never move to New York now because I'd be paying what the rent is now. Absolutely no way in hell. But I told somebody what I was going to charge to rent out my apartment while I'm gone. And they were credulous. I was like, no, I'll get it. I'll get that. And I did. No, because it's very cheap relative to New York rent. It's just that what you pay in rent now is ridiculous. It's just such what cheap is not cheap, not relative to what people are making, not relative to the economy. It's like what I'm charging is fair relative to what my rent is and the fact that I'm not going to be here. So the person's going to have the place to themselves. But is it cheap? I mean, I guess so if that's the national average. I mean, maybe it's cheap somewhere else too.
Well, New York,
it's dirt cheap for New York.
New York is getting so bad that the city is actually making some adjustments to make life harder on homeless people. And so we're going to show a brief clip from a video that Russell found. This is from the Moon YouTube channel. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is from Moon. They do some really good work. They do some really good videos. We probably have some fans of them in the audience, I would think. So they did a really interesting video. Just coincidentally, Keaton had already said he wanted to do this segment, and at the same exact time this dropped, they did a whole video about how cities are coming up with different ways to make it impossible for homeless people to sit anywhere or lay down anywhere. Now, if you live in New York, you're very familiar with the flanges on ledges outside of buildings so that nobody can sit on the ledge outside the building. But they're taking it to a whole other level. Some of these I've seen, and I hadn't even thought about why they were doing it. So we'll just take a look at a couple of minutes of this.
Even at a glance, we can see the obvious contempt and facets of our own economy, legislature, and social constructs. Our entire society at its core is designed to make life uncomfortable for the poor, whilst absolving those at the top from their feelings of guilt. But what if this idea goes beyond the intangible? What if it's all around us? What if the train station you use for your daily commute, something as innocuous as a public restroom, or even the park bench you occasionally sit on during lunch hour, all do a small part in maintaining this distance between the haves and have-nots? I'm talking about hostile or, quote, defensive architecture, and if you're not familiar, you really should be, because it's now seemingly everywhere, especially if you live in a city. Just look at New York, for example. In the past decade, the city has been turning up the dial on weaponizing the design of their public spaces against the homeless.
And what happened in the winter, because you have a lot of homeless people in New York City, because of both mental illness and also the fact that a shitty studio apartment can cost upwards of $2,200, is you had people that would sleep on these grates so that they wouldn't freeze to death. What they do is they put this stuff over it so that it's actually painful. Now you can't lie down on this to sleep because not only is it a metal grate, but it also sticks up in certain sections. Like you can see this one sticks up higher than
Stick into your back
so that if somebody were to lie down on this, they would actually feel physical pain.
Some of the more subtle iterations of this have included installing large metal bars on public benches, or making them so shallow that nobody can lay down or even loiter on them comfortably for longer than a few minutes. Some New York City subway stations and bus stops have even done away with public benches altogether in favor of leaning benches. And like I said, these are subtle versions of defensive architecture. There are far.
All right, so it goes on for a while because that's about a 12-minute video. But yeah, look at those examples. Look at those examples. A narrow bench that you can't lay down on. You have that metal bench with the raised pieces. You have the leaner. I have not lived in New York for a while, so I haven't seen those lean benches that you have on the subway walls. But that must be more recent, right?
Yeah, that's what I was asking you. Were you out of town by the time they introduced that?
I was. I have not seen those. That's new. Back when I lived there, you could still take a nap in a subway station. That's how nice, that's how luxurious New York was back in the mid 2010s there.
Well, you know what? I will tell you something. That last thing there.
Egregious versions of this in New York City alone. For example,
Hang on, that last thing they were showing was Grand Central, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Grand Central. Okay, off to the left here in this lobby. Okay, so you used to have layovers when people, before jet travel, with people really travel by train. Sometimes you would have 12-hour layovers. Sometimes you would have 4-hour layovers. So this whole area, the Vanderbilt lobby here, they used to have benches that were designed for you, and they had lockers and they had showers. And that was still there into the 80s. So by that time, it became a homeless encampment because nobody needed it to stay there between train trips at that point. But it was one of those cultural inertia things. They didn't get rid of it. So they finally got rid of it in the 90s, which, is an early example of this, of them trying to change the environment to make it unaccommodating to homeless people. But it's just such a sick society that would create circumstances where people financially can't afford a place to live. And then you make it impossible for them to find a place to sleep on the street. And with the grates, that's really psychopathic because the reason they lay on grates is for warmth. That's to make sure people can't get warmth in the wintertime.
No, it's just unbelievable. And, I used to see homeless people out in the wintertime, when it was 4 degrees. And, I was thinking to myself, just go down in the subway, just go down in the subway station. At least it's warm there. And now they're making it impossible to even do that. Making it known through those very subtle but recognizable choices that they don't want them really anywhere. And so where the hell are they supposed to go?
Right. And in New York, this started under Giuliani, who's kind of his karma's coming back on him now. But he's the one who really started enforcing old vagrancy laws that were still on the books to force people out of subway stations, out of bus stations, out of places that were warm. Now, because in New York, and this has come up now because of the Abbott and DeSantis sending migrants to New York, we have a shelter law that anyone who needs shelter has to be offered shelter. But those shelters were so dangerous that none of the homeless people wanted to stay in them. You go in there, you get beat up, you get robbed, you get stabbed. Nobody wanted to stay in these shelters. So you got given this choice. You could freeze out on the street, or you could go risk your life in a shelter. And it doesn't seem like that's really changed. If anything, over the course of my life, because of what he's talking about here, defensive architecture, they've just made it harder and harder and just more brutal, even as the city has become increasingly unaffordable.
All right, folks, we got 2,085 strong in the YouTube chat, 686 over on Rumble. Hit that like button wherever you're at. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're at. We must be at 666 likes by now in the YouTube chat. No? Jake, are we there yet? Let us know. Thanks, Abiding, for the 99 cents. Appreciate that. Ruthless Criticism, thanks for the $5. If anyone here is actually for some reason more afraid of Trump than Biden, rest assured, Cenk is still working hard behind the scenes. That's right. Forgot about Cenk Uygur. Forgot all about that guy. All right, we are almost at 666 likes, 648, so we'll get there in due time. Hit that like button wherever you are. Smash it hard. The Judge, thanks for the $6.90. Any lot lizards in the Rumble is room. Any lot lizards in the Rumble room.
I actually know what that means from my hitchhiking days. Keaton's too innocent to know what that means.
What's that?
A lot.
Well, I know what a lot lizard is, but I don't know what lot lizard in the Rumble is room. I don't know what the sentence means.
Oh yeah, well they're all getting it on over there. That's what Rumble is for.
Oh yeah, okay. There you go. I know lot lizard. Cool Blue 71. Thanks to the 1999. All those swing states except North Carolina would be 2024 Republican pickups. That's correct. A U.S. popular vote margin of R+3 with 31 states and 312 electoral votes. Margin of R+7 adds pickups of New Hampshire, Minnesota, New Mexico, and the entire state of Maine. No matter, this looks like a red wave. Certainly looks like that now, and thanks for all that data and that donation, Cool Blue.
The only thing I will say is that Dobbs has made things unpredictable because they thought it was going to be a red wave last time, and it certainly was not.
Well, this time you have the executive matchup. I think that's the different thing, too. Oh, yeah, Rumble is at over 666 viewers, so we owe Rumble a 666. So let's hit that anyway.
Yo. Damn.
Let's make that happen. Right. Beautiful. Woo-hoo. And we're also at over 666 YouTube likes as well. P. Walker, thanks for the $5. Trump is the Obama of the right. Campaign on hope and change. Do nothing, then have your most ardent supporters blame everyone but him. Yeah, the only difference there...
in a lot of respects.
In a lot of respects. The only difference there is that the establishment warmed to Obama instantly. Whereas with Trump, they clearly don't want him there. But thank you for that. Thanks for the $2, Regine.
He sent the tingle up Chris Matthews' leg.
He did. He sent the tingle up Chris Matthews' leg, Obama. Trump never sent the tingle up his leg, I don't think. Infinity Compass sent some Rumble rants here. Some Festivus grievances. All right, Festivus grievance number 1. Keaton, it's / for the love of God, / front / sounds like an awful body part euphemism and or something out of a horror film. Please atone. I like / Patreon.com / do dissidents. Patreon.com / do dissidents. I don't know. / has more rhythm. I'm going to keep it if you don't mind. But thank you for the suggestion. Festivus grievance number 2.
I got your back.
Russ, more cowbell is achieved by striking a drumstick or any stick against the cowbell, producing a talk sound. By the way, this will solve your sound issues. Please atone. Oh, so speaking of, thank you for those donations, Infinity Compass, and I appreciate the Festivus sentiments. Speaking of Festivus and the holidays, folks, our holiday schedule is going to be pretty much the same as it would be. Otherwise, we're not missing any shows for the holiday season. We're not taking any days off. The only thing we're going to do is we will have matinees on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve because both of those shows fall on Sundays. And so those will be matinee shows. I'm not sure exactly what time we'll do it yet. I'm figuring we'll probably do Christmas Eve a little bit earlier than New Year's Eve. Christmas Eve, maybe a noon show, since people are starting to go to dinner and stuff at 2 or 3 o'clock or whatever. But those will be matinees. Other than that, it'll be the same thing. Is your mic working?
It is, right?
It is. It is. It looked like you were just doing a test and I didn't hear you. That's why.
No, I was just making sure. I'm paranoid now.
Yeah, we're all paranoid. We're very paranoid this evening. We're on edge this evening. It just puts you on edge when the tech doesn't work. When you have a tech problem at the start of the show.
I'm fine. You're on edge.
Yeah. I'm
chilling.
Like you said you were paranoid.
No, I'm paranoid about the mic.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I mean, I always have mic issues. So in terms of the cowbell, listen. So this is the thing: the mic is on an automatic adjustment, so I would have to shut that off. Like that's why it's doing that. In terms of the talk, nah, man. I mean, the video that we really got this from, they were ringing it like that. That's really what we're referencing.
Oh yeah, indeed.
So we're not going to talk it. We're going to ring it.
So, folks, people's confidence in the economy is down. Homelessness is up. Things are so bad. Even Tucker Carlson is starting to think twice about capitalism. Glenn Greenwald asked Tucker Carlson about the Trump movement representing, at least in spirit, an alternative to Reaganomics. In practice, Trump gave all the tax cuts that any other Republican would have given. But there's no doubt that in that movement, there is a certain populism that is some retort to standard Reaganomics. So here is Glenn Greenwald asking Tucker about that very transformation.
Kind of transformed economic policy. He frequently kind of denounced the classic sort of Reaganomics, this idea that, we should all cheer for the richest people in our society to get richer because a rising tide lifts all boats. And everybody watches Raytheon and Boeing and BlackRock and Amazon get richer and richer and richer, and their boats aren't rising. And it really led a lot of people who have been capitalists their whole lives to at least start questioning not capitalism as a theory, but capitalism, how it manifests in American society. What is your view about sort of where the populist right is, the Trump movement is, when it comes to these core questions of economic theory and economic populism?
I think a lot of people have awakened to the now demonstrable fact that libertarian economics was a scam perpetrated by the beneficiaries of the economic system that they were defending. So they created this whole intellectual framework to justify the private equity culture that's hollowed out the country. That's my personal view, and I've seen it up close my whole life, so I think it's a fair assessment.
Just lost a lot of the libertarians there. You know, I want to pause it there. There's more, obviously, that we want to show.
Gary Johnson just kicked his poodle.
In his interview with Jimmy Dore, he brought up the fact that labor is taxed at relatively twice the rate of investment. And what does that say about the values of a society? It tells you that we value the investor class more than the laborer. And he gets into labels later on where he says something that's quite amazing coming from his mouth, i.e., I don't care if you call me a socialist. But this is why I think in this case it is important to talk labels, because the word socialism and communism is so often weaponized to shut down any reforms of the very capitalist system that he is now admitting is a scam that is designed to benefit the people who have the most already. Like, the fact that investment is valued more than labor, that is foundational to capitalist theory. That's what capitalism is. It's called capitalism. Under capitalism, you use existing capital to accrue more capital through investment. It's not based on labor. Trading your labor for money is not capitalism. Investing your existing money in order to make more of it through that investment, through the strength and perhaps wisdom in some cases of that investment, that's capitalism. And so that's why it is important to use these terms and use these terms the way they are supposed to be used. But I'll take this for now coming from Tucker, because it certainly seems like he's on the right track. But let's let him keep going.
I think a smarter way to assess an economic system is by its results. So you can assign whatever name you want to the economic system of the United States. You could call it market capitalism. You could call it a whole host of different things. But I don't think any of that's useful. Those are boring conversations. I think you need to ask, does this economic system produce a lot of dollar stores? And if it does, it's not a system that you want, because it degrades people and it makes their lives worse, and it increases exponentially the amount of ugliness in your society. And anything that increases ugliness is evil. And it's just let's just start there. So if it's such a good system, why do we have all these dollar stores? Dollar store is the clear, it's not the only ugly thing being created in the United States, but it's one of the most common, and it's certainly the most obvious. So if you have a dollar store, you're degraded. And any town that has a dollar store does not get better. It gets worse. And the people who live there lead lives that are worse.
Starting to think this guy just had a bad experience at a dollar store, and that's what really sparked his political transformation.
He must have bought one of those screwdrivers that breaks the third time you use it.
This soup ladle melted in my chicken soup.
Yeah, exactly. Before you really understand what the quality of the products are, you go into the dollar store, you go, oh, everything's so cheap, and then you take it all home and it breaks like the first time you try to use it.
Am I not worthy of a quality soup ladle? I think I am.
I think so.
Do you?
I
apparently not. If you do, you'll give me my $1.25 back.
My mom had the same soup ladle from the time I was 3 until I was 52.
Yeah.
It just broke.
This one barely lasted 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. Hey, whatever it is, I'll take it.
I want you to show me, when we do stuff on Tucker, you do get a certain contingent that, just absolutely hates Tucker. I want you to show me anyone on the other side of the so-called media, the so-called left media, say anything like this.
Oh, no, it's great. I'm all for it, obviously.
A guest that they ever brought on CNN or MSNBC who said anything like this. Who didn't get very quickly fired. I guess the last time was Dylan Ratigan. Dylan Ratigan went off the reservation on the air, and they fired him.
That's like, what, 2017? That's like 6 or 7 years ago.
That was probably the last time anybody ever went on a corporate media network and said anything like this, whether it be Fox, MSNBC, CNN. So you're supposed to hate Tucker Carlson. I'm not. I said the other day, to the delight of most, to the chagrin of some, when you go and you worship these rich people, you're making a fucking peasant out of yourself. So I'm not saying, go bow down to Tucker Carlson, but hey, man, don't dismiss him as your enemy either, because he's a lot closer to a friend than a lot of people running around claiming to have left of center politics.
Well, let's see. He goes on.
So, and the counter argument, to the extent there is one, oh, they buy cheaper stuff. Great. But they become more unhappy. And the dollar store itself is a sort of symbol. What's a physical thing? It's a real thing. It's not just a metaphor, but it's also a metaphor for your total lack of control over where you live and over the imposition of aggressively in-your-face ugly structures that send one message to you, which is you mean nothing. You are a consumer, not a human being or a citizen. And so, again, I don't know what we call our current system, but its effects are grotesque. They're grotesque. It's wrecked. I've been here 54 years and I watch carefully. That's my only gift, is I watch. And this has become a much uglier place, a much more crowded place, a much more hostile place, a place that cares much less about people. So whatever system that produces that outcome is a bad system. And you can call me whatever you want. Oh, you're a socialist. I don't care what you call me, actually. I'm beyond caring about name calling. It's bad, and I oppose it.
Well, that's progress of a kind, but the system you're describing is capitalism. What has happened in recent decades is capitalism has been unleashed upon the world, particularly since the fall of the Soviet Union, when capitalism had no ideological competitor on the world stage, and therefore capital felt no responsibility, no sort of prudential responsibility to provide for ordinary people, to rein itself in for the benefit of ordinary people. Because back when state socialism was a real thing and a real power and a real threat to capitalism, capital knew they couldn't just railroad the population, because then communist movements would take foot here. It could be argued very strongly, in my view, that actually it was the Soviet Union that moved the Democrats to the left. While the Democrats were left, it was the Soviet Union that pushed FDR to the left. Right? As much as anything else. I'm not saying that we didn't have certain labor movements here that were very instrumental, the civil rights movement, anti-war movements, but the threat of communism as a counterweight to the excesses of capitalism made a huge difference here. And when that went away, what happened? Capitalism was unleashed, and that's the increasingly horrible system that we see just ramming its foot right down our throat ever since. And so I do think it's important to call that out.
That's a solid theory.
What's that?
It's a solid theory.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. I do think it's important to call that out. But when did you ever see Tucker Carlson? When did you ever think you'd see Tucker Carlson saying, call me a socialist, I don't care? I mean, that's big. That's big. And look, I mean, there are certain things in there that, like, I wish he'd have maybe said while he was on Fox News. Of course, that's probably part of why he's not on Fox News anymore. But Fox News... how many times did Fox News call Barack Obama, who picked his cabinet appointees off of a pre-approved Citigroup list? They called him a socialist 100 times a day, if once a day. I mean, during the campaign, socialist. And so, his former place of work, and look, I can't hold him accountable for everything that happened at Fox News. He's not even at Fox News anymore, obviously. So I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, when you have a guy who swam in those circles for so long, who used the word socialism and communism to demonize and delegitimize anyone to the left of Mitt Romney, it's important to see them coming along this way. I hope he goes even further, but this is progress of a kind that, like you said, you have not seen in any other mainstream media figure, much less the water cooler zeitgeist TV anchor of our time.
Yeah, this is like if Herman Hesse had written a novel about the spiritual journey of a cable news host. That novel would be called Siddhartha Carlson. He's going on this whole arc, and you watch. In a few years, he's going to be wearing saffron robes. He's going to be washing the feet of the poor. He's on this whole journey, actually very much like the Buddha. He started out a rich kid, and you're just watching this whole evolution and spiritual transformation. I think the begging bowl is not far away for Tucker Carlson. I think you're going to see him on the streets of Calcutta pretty soon. On his road. No, I think what sets Tucker Carlson apart from a lot of his peers is he's genuinely curious, and he's not afraid to change his mind, and he's not afraid to admit that he was wrong.
And that's what makes him an interesting host. That's why he had such high ratings. It's interesting to watch a guy who you don't know what they're going to say until they say it. Who wants to watch Sean Hannity? You already know what Sean Hannity's going to say before he opens his mouth.
Right. And I think for a lot of these guys, like Sean Hannity, they're in showbiz. They're in showbiz. Look, even just doing this, I can see, because you start to, I mean, we're doing this pretty hardcore for a couple of years now. Like you could tell who means it and who doesn't. You could tell who's just putting on a show for the cameras and who isn't. And most of these guys, particularly at those channels, at CNN, it seems like more of them actually buy this bullshit. But when you go into these channels that are intended basically to be the booster arms of these two political parties, you're putting on a show. Like I'm not convinced they mean even 25% of what they say. It's a show. It's a show. Joy Reid goes on the air. She puts on the Joy Reid show. Oh, this is what the libs want to hear. Sean Hannity goes on. He's putting on the Sean Hannity. Oh, this is what Republicans want to hear. Do they mean it? Do they even think about whether they mean it any more than an actor doing lines thinks about whether they mean it or whether they sold it? I think they think more about whether they nailed it, whether they sold it, whether they had a good segment. It's all bullshit. Carlson actually went on the air saying what he thought. And sometimes, a lot of the time, he was very wrong. But over time, and this is why he gained so much audience, I mean, back when Jon Stewart just blew up his show, his and Carville, Crossfire just made them look like fools. Tucker Carlson is probably the last person you ever would have thought would have had this kind of light bulb moment and realized that everything he ever believed was bullshit. But he did. He did. He went from being this bow tie Swanson dinner air joke to being this very interesting guy who is clearly on a very rich intellectual and political journey that it's just fascinating to wonder, where is this going to end? Where is this guy going to end up? Is he going to be a leftist by the time he's done? Is he going to be a left populist? Because a speech like that, he's more than halfway there.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, we've been talking about doing some flashback segments. We might do one maybe this week in the aftermath of this little segment here, because there was a big segment that he did with Ben Shapiro. He went on Ben Shapiro's show, and they were arguing about self-driving trucks. And Shapiro said, well, would you stop the advent of self-driving trucks if it meant saving a lot of blue-collar jobs? And Tucker said, yes, I would, because self-driving trucks is going to make people's lives worse. And the ultimate test of a system is, does it improve people's lives or not? The number one, by far the number one job for men without a 4-year degree is transportation, driving. So if you automate those jobs out of existence, you're going to immiserate large swaths of people. And ultimately, as much as he called himself a capitalist back then, he said something to the effect of, and I'm going off memory here, we'll do this segment later this week because it was really fascinating. He says, I think capitalism should serve people. I don't think people should serve capitalism. So where capitalism no longer serves people, that's where we have to make a change. Whereas Shapiro is just totally dogmatic. Well, no, people serve the market. The market doesn't serve us, right? So that's, I think, part of where he's coming from, too. Folks, you can go to patreon.com/do dissidents and help support this show. We have a record crowd in here tonight. 2370 in the YouTube chat. 728 in the Rumble chat. Well over 3,000 of you lovely people watching right now. The way to support this show, the best way to support this show, if you can, is to go to patreon.com. Here, I'll throw an olive branch out to our Festivus guy, /do dissidents. How's that? I'm in the holiday spirit. Patreon.com/do dissidents. Will you sign up now that I did the /? You can sign up for as little as $5 a month at Patreon. You can also go to Substack, dodissidents.substack.com, or Locals, dodissidents.locals.com. Perks are the same across all those different sites, but that is how you censor-proof the operation. That is how we know we can afford to do this show no matter what happens on these big tech platforms whose mercy we operate at each and every time. So if you can go to patreon.com /do dissidents, our Substack or our Locals, you can sign up for as little as $5 a month. In exchange, you get call-in access to our Sunday night post-show Q&As over on Rumble. You also get your name up in lights here in the show credits. You will get your name in the end credits of our upcoming Jose Vega documentary, which we will have a release date announced next Sunday. So 1 week from today, Christmas Eve, we will be announcing the title and the release date of the Jose Vega documentary. So how's that for a teaser? How's that for a Christmas gift for you guys? But you get your name in the credits of that film. And most importantly, most fun, you get 2 extra shows per month. We do 2 shows per month exclusively for our paid supporters. That is over on Rumble. Those are a lot of fun. They're loose. They're uncensored. They're bawdy. People call in. It's interactive. And so you get all that for as little as $5 a month and the goodwill of knowing that you are supporting independent media. So please, if you can, it's super important. It's super helpful to sign up at patreon.com/do dissidents. We have crossed 480 paid members. When we get to 500, we will add a 4th weekly stream. So we are very, very close. We're almost there. We got 3,000 of you watching right now, which means we can conceivably get there in the next few minutes if you guys go and sign up. So patreon.com /do dissidents. See, I'm getting in the habit of doing that already.
You can say you were there the night they quit their jobs. Okay, you know what, dissidents, you're going to be disappointed in me. Keaton understood, though. So, I'm still tour guiding, and I had a Harlem tour this morning, a gospel. So it ended at this church, and so I get there, and, I wasn't assigned to stay at the church. It's a company that runs multiple groups for these gospel tours, and sometimes you get assigned to the church. I hate it with a passion, but I did get assigned today. And I'm about to leave. They said, "Oh, you're not going to stay to meet the mayor?" I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Oh yeah, Adams is coming." It's like, Adams is coming? Why? They're like, he's just going to shake hands. Now, if you've been around for a long time, the first person I ever ambushed on the street was actually Adams. And I asked him about why he supports solitary confinement, and he gave me a whole song and dance. Look it up. I don't support solitary confinement. Look it up, and next time you see me, I want you to say, "Thank you, Eric, for not supporting solitary confinement." This scumbag, I look it up. He supports punitive segregation.
Yeah.
Yes, it is literally the same thing. So I was like, oh, man, he's coming. Do I confront him? But I decided, these old ladies at this African-American church have been letting me come in here as a tour guide and make money for years. I'm not going to ruin their big Eric Adams is coming to our church thing, so I didn't do it. So tell me in the chat, did I do the right thing or not? Keaton related.
Oh, of course you did the right thing. You don't shit where you eat. And plus, you have a press pass now, so you can get to interview him properly at a press event.
That was part of how I looked at it. I was like, if I really want to ambush Eric Adams, I can do it anytime with my press pass.
Yeah, and it's
just
not
find
an ambush
out where he's going to be.
You're a member of the press. You're an accredited member of
I'm
the press.
a member
now.
of the
You're a
press.
journalist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a whole other way of thinking. Like, wow, I'm a legitimate member of the press. I'm not. Exactly. I don't just have to dive bomb these people. I don't have to just call Jose and be like, "Yo, Jose, what are you doing today?"
Yeah, what are you doing? Yeah, right.
Let's go fuck with this motherfucker.
Flick off. Thanks for the $5. Joe Biden is hilarious to watch. Does that count as a good thing to say? Yeah, he is hilarious to watch. That's for sure. Garble, thanks for the $5. The RICO Act destroyed unions created in 1970. Then in 73, productivity split from wages. A good union is considered an illegal racket. Thank you, Garble.
I'm just going to say we have the best people because everyone said I did the right thing. That's a nice audience. That's an audience of nice people.
Yeah, no, we did the right thing. You did the right thing for sure. And I knew our audience would have your back. Elizabeth Marshall, thanks for the $2. All the money for war and none for the people. Yes, that's correct. Tusker, member for 7 months. Tusker, happy memberversary to our friend Tusker. I prefer the more inclusive term shelter disenfranchised. Yes, indeed. Russell, let's test that cowbell out right now. Pluto gave us a lovely super sticker for $49.99.
Right,
Thank you, Pluto.
So you tell me if you can hear this.
I can hear it. It's not loud, but it's,
Yeah, so, there you go.
It gets the point across. It gets the point across without blowing people's ear out, and we'd rather have the mic working for most of the show. Disco Inferno, 70. Thanks for the $5. Mars New Rules is his most disgusting take of all time. The audience cheers were equally hideous. I want to kick the TV screen. It was up there. It was up there for sure. And we will get to that.
Okay. So I tend to wake up about 3, 4 in the morning, and then I'll put on some YouTube videos and it'll put me back to sleep, usually within a half an hour. So I watched that at 3 o'clock in the morning. So can you imagine how horrifying that was to come upon at 3 o'clock in the morning in the dark? I sent it right to Keaton in the middle of the night. Poor bastard had to wake up to that.
All right, let's move on. Russell, you got another one here. The Dinks. I'm looking forward to this one.
All right, so the Dinks, I thought we're uniquely qualified to cover this because I'm a bounder and a cad, and Keaton is this really traditional family man, so I think we have a lot to bring to this story. All right, so we're Dinks, a weird sign of our hyper-consumerist times. The dual income, no kids trend, and the risks of defining yourself by childlessness. Now, this was Vice News. I was shocked at how good the article was because, Vice News is the home of how to make your non-binary cat a new litter box. And this article was just really good.
Maybe my cat's non-binary. Maybe that's why he's shitting on the floor. My cat started shitting on the floor a few weeks ago. He won't stop. Maybe that's why.
Well, go into the Vice back catalog. I'm sure you can find something that addresses that problem.
I never considered that maybe the source of the problem, but now that you mention it.
Well, you didn't consider it because you're not a dink. If you were a dink, you'd be more in touch with those issues.
Exactly, yeah.
Younger generations often feel like there's nothing for them to aspire toward. The American dream of the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, and a golden retriever doesn't seem attainable. Never mind whatever ethics that might cite about whether or not it's reasonable to bring a child into the world right now. Many believe they just can't afford it. Instead, however, they can glamorize a different lifestyle, one that's more achievable, becoming dinks. DINKs, an acronym for dual income, no kids, is a slangy economic term for couples who have no children, but each partner works. When it originated in the 1980s, it referred mainly to middle-class and upward couples with healthy salaries and disposable income. Lately on social media, DINKs have taken on a new meaning. In particular, younger DINK couples have utilized recent trends to highlight their lifestyle and essentially brag about what being DINKs affords them. They get to spend their weekends however they like, buy however many snacks they want at Costco. I mean, it really is like if cats could shop. This is what they would do with their time. They want at Costco for only being a household of 2. DINKs sure do love their bulk superstores and eat them all themselves or spoil their dogs as if they were human. Being a DINK, in other words, affords them more time and money to consume. All right, so there's one DINK video that has gone super viral that sums up the DINK lifestyle.
I got it.
We're dinks. We're going to get asked when we plan on having kids.
We're dinks. Of course we're going to go out to eat every night after work.
We're dinks. We don't have to ask our family for financial help or to watch our kid when we want to go out.
We're dinks. We're going to go to Costco and buy all the snacks in bulk that we want.
We're dinks. We have disposable income to spend on whatever we would like and don't have to spend on a kid.
We're dinks. I'm going to go to every
brother. I'd lay off the Costco before she leaves you for another dink.
We're going to get asked at every single family event what we're doing with our life.
Yeah. So, all right. One point that I was shocked that this Vice article made about this is none of these DINK videos are, I don't have children. And now I have more time to volunteer at the local homeless shelter. Or even, I have time to realize my dream of playing the violin. It's all this very superficial, consumerist, can take vacations and eat snacks, and it's very selfish. It's very self-indulgent. And I'm always careful not to beat up on a generation that hasn't been given a lot of options. I always thought the avocado toast thing was sad because, yeah, they're not able to get any of the traditional status symbols of maturity and achievement. So they're falling back on having a fabulous brunch and posting it on Instagram. And I see this that way too. I do think the economics are dictating the trend. They're trying to put a happy face on the reality that they can't really afford the stability the previous American generations had. So they're trying to make it a lifestyle choice.
Yeah. I think the economics definitely dictates the culture to a large extent in that way. I also think, because I have two kids, twin 4-year-old boys, for those who don't know, I do get the sense that some people do feel a bit under attack for not having kids. They feel judged for not having kids, and then that develops into a certain resentment for those with kids and a certain instinct to want to really explain and justify your decision to not have kids. For me, how other people live their lives is very uninteresting to me, as long as they're not imposing their beliefs on anyone else, or as long as they are not hurting anyone else. You can choose to have kids or not have kids. It literally makes no difference to me. When I see people make videos like this, that to me, and I could be wrong in their case. They could just be, social media people who like to get themselves in front of a camera and see what people think of them. But to me, when you start defending your lifestyle in a way that sort of rebukes the lifestyles of others who are not necessarily imposing upon you in any way, that reads to me as an insecurity about your own life choices. And I'm not saying that that's the case for them. It may not be the case, but that's the way it reads to me. To me, the only reason I would give a shit about how someone else chooses to live their lives, again, as long as they're not imposing any of their choices on me or hurting me in any way, the only reason I would possibly care is if I was unhappy with myself and I felt some need to pass judgment on others in a way to validate my own life to myself. Now, on the question of, if you don't have children, you will have more disposable income. Well, yeah, that's quite obvious, right? If you don't bring people into the world who you have to spend money on and share money with, then you'll have more money for yourself and more time for yourself. The bet that I make, and it seems like a very good bet so far, is that, when I'm old and gray and I'm ready to check out, I will look at my kids and see a body of work that will outlive me, that I will be really proud of, something that really connects me to the future in that way. And I will be
they'll
much
let
happier.
Sawyer out on early release to be there by your side.
Yeah, they'll let him out on early release to be there. Right, exactly. But I am betting that will be more fulfilling in the end than saying, well, I got to go to Costco and buy all the snacks just for myself. Now, that's not necessarily the case for everybody. I have friends who don't want to have kids, who for them, they say, look, I get one life. I want to live it the way I want to. And that means enjoying every moment for myself that I possibly can. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything narcissistic or selfish about that. It's your life. You live it however you want. But for me, the bet that I make is that at the end, I will be much prouder for having had kids than if I didn't. And there are, of course, moments of transcendence when you have kids. There's transcendent joy, there's transcendent love, there's also transcendent pain and transcendent fear. I mean, the most afraid I've ever been in my life was having to leave Sawyer in that hospital room that night when he had that rare autoimmune response to an unknown whatever it was, and he had a rash all over him, and he could barely swallow and barely talk, and he was just in constant pain, and I was leaving him there in good hands. My wife was there with him, and the doctors were on top of it. The odds were in his favor, and I was still terrified to leave him there. And I'm not a religious man, and that night I said, God, I know I'm an asshole for not believing in you, but if you got to take somebody, take me. Don't take him. Take me, please. And you learn things about yourself in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are transcendent experiences. They're bad, but you come out of them knowing things about yourself that you didn't before. And so for me, being a parent is all about that. Now that's not for everybody. And if it's not for you, that's fine. I pass no judgment on it. To me, taking to social media to kind of stick it to people, well, guess what? I get to go to Applebee's after work and you don't. That strikes me as an insecure person.
Especially Applebee's. All right, so I'll give the I've been around the block old man take on this. Most of these people are going to wind up with a lot of regrets, and most of them are going to wind up miserable. That is my experience of people who don't have kids or make these kinds of choices. Now, you've never seen this on such a mass scale before, but you are starting to see people dropping videos who are on the other side of fertility. In the case of women saying, crying, talking about how they got sold a bill of goods and now they're realizing that they can never have that family and their life seems very empty. And what's the point? That's the thing. These guys, they're in their late 20s? Okay. How are you going to feel about this when you're in your 40s? How are you going to feel about this when you're in your 50s? Because I hate to tell you, Sunshine, you guys are probably going to have split up, partly because you're not really going to have any reason to stay together. Going to Costco and watching whatever movie you want is going to get old, and that is not enough glue to hold you together. Now, there are very few people for whom, yes, you're probably better off. I would consider myself, I do have kids, but I never really did what you're doing, like that kind of a family thing. Yeah, for me, as somebody who's endlessly curious and would really feel held back by the obligations of not being able to just go do what I want when I want to pursue whatever interest I want because I don't have time. Yeah, that works for me, but it doesn't mean I didn't give anything up. And it doesn't mean that I don't mourn on some level that family I didn't have. And that's coming from somebody who I would say is about as cut out to live the way I live as a person could be cut out to live. And even I look and say, the road not taken. So for most people, what they're doing is not going to be the right choice. Most of them are going to end up deeply regretting that. No matter what you choose in life, it seems to me like with you, like family life fits you like a glove. But I've long felt that no matter what you choose in life, it's picking between two poisons, and you got to choose which one you think is going to kill you and which one you think you can survive. If it wasn't like that, it wouldn't be a choice. It would just be what you do. You wouldn't have to think about it. You would just do it. If it's this major choice, that means there's a conflict there. No matter what you choose, some part of you will always crave the opposite of what you chose. So choose wisely. But for most people, that choice is going to leave them old, bitter, with a lot of regrets and feeling like their life is purposeless.
Well, like I said, I mean, I don't want to project that onto them. There are people for whom, not having dual income, no kids is fine. I'm telling you from my life experience, man. And I've probably seen more of this than the average person because I'm in the arts. More people in the arts make that choice. That happens more in the arts.
Well, that's like now it's spread to the civilians, but that used to be something you only saw really among artists.
I was very conscious of that because I pursued a career in the arts for a while, but, I knew I was going to marry Amanda very early on, and I knew that was going to mean probably not having a career in the theater. And, there was not a moment's hesitation. Yeah, of course, I'll trade in the elusive career in show business for someone who I love and being a family man.
There's nothing sadder if you're in show business than that person who's like in their 50s, 60s, and you could tell they regret it. They're sad, man. They're lonely. They didn't make it.
Yeah, they didn't get anything for it either, right? It wasn't even a trade-off.
They didn't get what they were trying to get, and now they're just living poor.
And 99 out of 100 people who go down that road don't get what they're looking for.
Right, exactly.
Hey, let's get back to politics. Let's do a politics show.
Well, no, man. I thought this was interesting because me and you are kind of like the polar opposite.
Right.
In a very unique position to comment on a social trend. That doesn't come up a lot. What are we going to talk about? The fucking ice bath challenge or something?
No, not at all.
What do we have to say about that?
No, I was excited for that segment. I think it came out good. Mac Truck, thanks for the $10. America is the wealthiest nation on earth, but its people are mainly poor, and poor Americans are urged to hate themselves, says Kurt Vonnegut. Thank you, Mac Truck. Appreciate that. When you have time, please check out Palestine from Ashes to Triumph, says AJMQ1. You have a link posted on there, but it won't post properly because it's on a scroll. But thank you for the recommendation. I appreciate that. Pardon me there. Steve Bitto, thanks for the $20. Tens of thousands of people in this country live a nomadic lifestyle, mostly out west on public lands. Yep, indeed. Yep. No, my dad's friend did that.
Slab City out there.
Yep. Well, there's that movie that won the Oscar during the pandemic year. Was it Nomadland? I never saw it.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, and they had real nomads in the movie, right? They had real people who lived the RV life. Soon it'll be Mad Max. Thanks, Black Freud. And thanks for closing the asylums. Ronald Reagan says China shill. Thank you for the $2 there. SR Warner, thanks for the $5. We need poor farms. Watch the 1930s documentary on it. Thank you for that. Black Freud, got to admit, I worry about Russell's neck on these 666ers. Yeah, me too. Me too, for sure.
I do yoga every morning, man.
That's true. Russell does do yoga. Kinky wants to see your T-shirt. Can we see your T-shirt? Thanks.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, 1984, Fahrenheit 451, and Brave New World. You are here. That's a good one. Thank you, Kinky. David Santucci, Comrade Tucker. Perhaps, David. Thank you very much. Somebody beat me to the Comrade Tucker joke. Okay, well, at least you only plunked down 199. He plunked down 10. So there you go. You got the better of him in that sense. So thank you very much for that. Rando Calrissian, thanks for the $4.99. Tucker is an ally until he starts talking about Black America and immigrants. Tucker thinks MLK Jr. was woke. Give me a break. Yeah, that's the last frontier he's yet to evolve on, really. He still gets into that very sort of reactionary, tough on crime kind of rhetoric, like with Chicago and all that. But who knows? Maybe that'll be the next incarnation. Yo, we should fucking interview Tucker Carlson. We need a few hundred more thousand subscribers for that, though. So hit that subscribe button.
You never know. He seems like a guy who might do it on a whim.
Yeah, maybe he's cool like that. But yeah, I would love to interview Tucker. That'd be amazing.
We have a mutual friend. We should reach out.
We do.
Give us some contact info, man.
We have a couple mutual friends now, actually. Ruthless Criticism, thanks to the $50. Tucker should read Marx. He explains clearly how class-based modes of production rise and fall. Capitalism was revolutionary and ascendant at one time. It transcended its period of decadence and now is in decay. It can't be fixed, only replaced. I agree, and thank you for that $50. We owe you a cowbell, Ruthless Criticism. That's very generous of you.
Damn right.
Well, partly, I mean, Marx believed in industry, and the problem now is that capitalism is outliving industry, right? Now we're transforming to AI. We're transforming to this really advanced technology to the point where you don't need a labor force anymore, and that's one of the things that's happening.
Well, that's it. That's why they're trying to kill us.
Yeah. Exactly. All right.
That's why they love these dinks.
Yeah, they like the dinks.
They love the dinks.
I thought I just busted my nose open.
We should. This will be an experiment. Drop that clip and see if the algo just like grabs it and shoots it up.
Blast it. Yeah, right, exactly. Just blast it out. All right, folks, let's get to one of two marquee stories of the evening. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. returned to Breaking Points for round 2 with Crystal Ball. There's a lot of video to play here. This is about 6 minutes, so we will be stopping and starting as we go. But obviously, the most contentious portion of this discussion was Israel Gaza. And so RFK begins by talking about how the IDF is very generous to let the Palestinian people know in advance of bombing campaigns. He said they've left 20,000 voice calls to people, whose homes are about to be hit. They've also sent out 1.2 million pamphlets warning of targeted strikes. And now he talks about, third, last but not least, these things that I had never heard of before, roof knockers. So this is where we start. Let's start with RFK talking about what a roof knocker is.
Knockers, which is a projectile that hits the roof 2 hours before they bomb the building to warn the people in that building to get out because they're going to bomb it. In warning the civilians, they're also warning Hamas. And so it makes it much more difficult. And, the fact there's many, many nations in the world that would just go and flatten the whole place, which Israel could do.
Oh, they could do. Seems to me like they are doing it. And as for this whole roof knocker thing that you're talking about, so what he's talking about there is Israel will fire in a non-explosive projectile, as he calls it, that will knock on the roof of a house to warn the person in the house that in a couple hours we're going to drop a bomb on your house. Which, by the way, really nice of them to do that. I mean, what a courtesy that is, right? You warn them before you're going to blow their house up. Give them a few hours to leave.
Excuse me, is anybody there? We are planning on destroying everything you ever knew, so you have to leave now. You're welcome.
You have to leave now, and that's what the knock. Boom, the roof knock. Now we've all seen footage online. I saw this one video of this woman, this journalist in northern Gaza, who was living there, and she switched from telling her child, "Don't worry, we're going to be okay," to "Don't worry, if we die, we'll die together, and it'll be quick. We won't even know when it happens, because when a bomb hits our house, it'll just blow us to pieces in half a second. We won't even know." So what that means is that they're not getting the roof knocker warning, because they're saying they could die at any second. And we have reporting on this, in case you don't believe me. CNN, October 11th, 2023. Israel seemingly stops knock the roof military tactic. Here's what it means and why it matters. The IDF have seemingly stopped the knock on the roof. The euphemism describes a military tactic first developed in 2009 and used in several conflicts since then. How it works, RFK pretty much just described how it works. I won't put you through all of that. But what's happening now? Highlighted text. Following Hamas's attack on Saturday, that was October 7th, this was published just 4 days after, Israel seems to have abandoned the knock on the roof. CNN has spoken to multiple people in Gaza and said they were given no notice when their homes were bombed. When asked whether the IDF has stopped the tactic, Hecht said on Monday that Hamas did not knock on the roof. When they came in and threw grenades at our ambulances, they did not knock on the roof. This is war. The scale is different. So they're saying, well, Hamas didn't knock on our roof, so we're not knocking on their roofs. And they're saying what they said in the beginning. They said in the beginning, the enemy is about to face a level of assault that is unprecedented. So obviously, given the size and the scope of the offensive, they were not going to engage in the roof knockers. And don't worry, I don't have an exhibit for every piece of bullshit that RFK lets fly out of his mouth. But it's important to bring that up because what have we said about RFK from the very beginning? He's a lawyer. What does a lawyer do? A lawyer will throw out a factoid and they'll trust that you don't know enough to counter them. That's why it's very tough to debate him, because he'll throw out something like that and you'll, well, what do you mean roof knocker? You know it doesn't make sense that they're putting these roof knockers out there. But then again, you don't necessarily know enough to call him out on it. And if you do call him out on it and he has a fact up his sleeve, he embarrasses you and now you look like an asshole, right? That's what a good lawyer does. But most good lawyers are good liars. And that's what RFK is at the end of the day. He's a good fucking liar. And so that was a crock of bullshit. They are not using roof knockers now. Obviously, they are just leveling the place as he said they could if they want to. Well, they are. Anything to add before we continue?
It's interesting that both RFK and Marianne exposed themselves as the degenerate Zionist scumbags they are in the same couple of days.
Same couple of days.
It's almost like they're working together.
It doesn't have to go in there and put IDF soldiers at risk in hand-to-hand combat. This is Hamas has made this stand. They're putting civilians in the way. What is Israel supposed to do? It can't leave Hamas in there.
But Bobby, I don't think we should accept that from any state, Israel or any other. And I mean, they have rendered. Hold on. They've rendered Gaza City uninhabitable at this point. And there's been reports documenting that some of the procedures that you're talking about that they used in previous wars, they're not using this time. They've emphasized this attack on quote-unquote power targets, which are things like civilian infrastructure and high-rise apartment buildings, not to get Hamas, but to create a, quote, shock in the civilian population. In addition, as I mentioned before, you have a collective punishment of 2.2 million people who are having their access to water, food, fuel, medicine blocked right now by Israel. This also appears to be in violation of the Geneva Conventions. Do you think that it's acceptable to impose a siege on the entire civilian population in Gaza?
If there's a violation, first of all, I don't think that's happening. Let me explain. Second of all, if it violates the Geneva Convention, or if they're deliberately, at any point, anybody is deliberately targeting civilians, they should be prosecuted and they should be jailed and the key should be thrown away. People say this, but I don't see any proof of that. Right now, that people are deliberately targeting civilians.
But the government announced they were doing a complete siege on the 2.2 million.
Yeah, okay. You're talking about the siege. The siege.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The thing where they said that they were turning off the fuel and the water and the electricity. I mean, again, this is just what this guy does. It's they're not doing that. Well, yeah, they are doing that. Oh, well, you're talking about that other thing that they're doing. Well, yeah, I guess a siege, right? First of all, you don't even have to get into the fuel, electricity, and water. She didn't quite dismantle your first point about the roof knockers as well as she probably should have. That's why. I mean, and he had a hard enough time with her. Could you imagine Max Blumenthal and him sitting in the same room?
Oh, he'd take them apart.
Yeah.
Crystal.
That's why I won't do it.
This interview was an example of where she's coming out of a professional background, which a lot of people in the alternative media are not. And, in some ways, that defines her viewpoint in a very PMC direction. But in a situation like this, she's able to bring a skill set that a lot of people don't have who have interviewed RFK. So I thought this was Crystal at her best through this interview, which does not mean it's Max Blumenthal at his best, but it's probably the best you're going to get for anyone that RFK is going to agree to sit down with.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the other thing now is that all this stuff has been page one news for the past 2 months. So it's just like it's harder to slip things past the goalie here, right, than it would have been months ago, or on a topic that he knows significantly better than hers. I mean, this is something where, like I said, if you're a lawyer, you can bring a certain fact set to an argument. And like I said, he kind of got away with that one about the roof knockers because she just said a lot of those things they're not doing anymore. I mean, she didn't have it ready to go that they're not using roof knockers. But then again, who would? I had to look that up. Like, it's hard. Like, you don't know all of these specifics. You can't tell what a bullshitter is going to say until they say it. That's why it's hard to win an argument against them, especially when they, are skilled lawyers the way he is.
We did for 10 years. We did collective punishment of Iraq. We actually killed.
I'm not trying to justify that either here.
But why are we just going after the Jews? Why?
They all give up the game. All of them eventually, if you push these Zionists hard enough, they will concede that Israel is a settler colonial project committing atrocities by deflecting to other settler colonial projects that committed atrocities. Like, you're giving away the whole game. If you're making that comparison, you are now conceding what Israel actually is.
Of course. Well, what? Why are you singling out the Jews? First of all, RFK is not Jewish. I am. Don't put this on me. Do not put this on us. Okay? You do not speak for the Jews, right? It's just another sleazy tactic. You're only blaming the Jews when they do it.
No, you're blaming the Zionists.
I don't know what Crystal's politics were back in 2003. I don't know if she was on the air at that point. I don't think she was. I certainly was very much against the Iraq War. I was 16 years old at the time. You're not talking to a bunch of morons who were cheerleaders for the Iraq War. When you start saying, well, I mean, we laid siege upon Baghdad, and so why are you giving the Jews a problem for laying siege upon Gaza? At that point, you've lost. You've lost. And he reverts to that quite a few times.
Let me just finish this
because
right now.
our tax dollars are going to fund what's going on, and the visuals of these children being killed and losing their parents and the rubble and the total destruction. This is something our government is
I
have
friends in Gaza. Okay, I have a friend who's a father of 5 kids, and what he's living through right now is horrible. I have many Palestinian
I'm sure
friends.
he loves you. I'm sure he's really
met with
appreciative of your advocacy, your friend in Gaza. I'd like to know who that friend is. I'd like to interview that friend, actually, if he's not dead. Hopefully he's alive.
If you're listening, reach out. DoDissidents@gmail.com.
Yeah, DoDissidents@gmail.com. Right. When you flee to Egypt and get a Wi-Fi connection, send us an email, because I would love to know who this person is.
Palestinian leadership. I love the Palestinian people.
Oh yeah.
It's excruciating watching what's happened. But why are we blaming Israel? Why are we
because
blaming
they're the ones dropping the bomb?
What? It's excruciating watching what's happening, but why are we blaming Israel? Why are we blaming Israel? I mean, what do you say to that?
Yeah, it's this whole interview was pretty stunning, and the position that he's taken. This is why I've said from day one, when we really took a position on RFK, he's a fucking screwball, man. Because even on a political level, like, I don't believe the guy doesn't understand politics. He's a smart guy. He just says this crazy shit. All of this. And then whenever he gets called out on it, I'm taken out of context. I didn't mean it that way. Did you see the study from the group that was completely discredited later? Go read that study. It's just all shit like that. When you trace back the things he says, some of them are true, some of them are not. Who has time? And again, that's a lawyer tactic. Just dazzle them with bullshit. Just baffle them with bullshit so that by the time they've dug themselves out, you've thrown more bullshit on top of it.
Yep, and there's a lot of style. There's a lot of presentation about it. You project confidence that you know what you're talking about, and you scare them into not pushing back, because when you project with such confidence, they drop roof knockers on the houses to warn people in advance. Right. When you look them in the eye and you say that with full confidence, which these lawyers practice. I mean, lawyers practice in front of mirrors. It's a tactic. You don't just win the argument. You win the psychological battle against the opposition. You make them feel like they can't push back, because if they push back, they're going to end up with egg on their face, even if what you're saying is total nonsense.
They have
with our dollars.
They have to get at Hamas. They have to destroy Hamas. And Hamas, unfortunately, built tunnels for themselves, but they did not build bomb shelters for their people. And Israel has told people, move to the south. There's food trucks there. There's medicine there. There's fuel there.
But there's not.
They got
it's
the
only not there.
They got the halal trucks. They're making.
There's also
falafel.
bombs there waiting for them. They've also been bombing the South.
They've been bombing the South, and they came up with this crazy zip code scheme. Okay, go to this quadrant. So it would basically be like if you're in Manhattan and you're in Midtown, and they go, okay, so now go to 8th Avenue and 30th Street. Yeah. It's insane. You got people with half the population are children. How are they supposed to do that?
How are people supposed to even move? Because now you have the 1.2 million from the north crammed in amongst the 1 million, or I'm sorry, on top of the 1 million who already live there. So now you have 2.2 million people
and you're
crammed into an area half the
quadrant.
size of the Gaza Strip. And now they're supposed to move around like a fucking like a Frogger game, dodging this and that.
And are they even really trying to do that, or are they just want to be able to say that they're trying to do that? Look, we have a whole map. We tell the people, okay, you got 10 minutes to coordinate 1 million people to move over to this quadrant. I mean, they're probably not even attempting it. It's just a cover story.
The area they told them to go to is an area that is the size of LAX airport. It is a desert wasteland There are no UN flag facilities. In fact, if you ask the Secretary General of the UN, he'll tell you there are no safe places in Gaza. You already have 1.8 million people who have been displaced from their homes. So, at what point do you say, okay, it's enough? Because the other piece of this, even if you say, and I know you're not saying this, but even if you say, I don't care about the Palestinian lives, they got to do what they got to do. It's the cost of war. What are you going to do? There's also a lot of evidence that what they're actually doing is fomenting increasing support for Hamas. Because if you think about it, if you're a kid and your parents get blown up, what kind of politics do you think you're going to have when you grow up? Isn't that going to be tremendously radicalizing and incredibly compromising to the security of Israelis alike?
So how would you get rid of Hamas?
Well,
if you're Israel.
Well, I'm not running for president of the United States, number one. But number two, I think we have a model for this in a sense from the way we went in and approached bin Laden. So it was a targeted raid.
Oh!
If you're actually going to do this, you do a counter-terror operation.
That's exactly what I said on the Jimmy Dore show. I didn't know she watches the Jimmy Dore show anymore. It's exactly the point I made. We didn't even blow up the bin Laden compound. When we went in and killed bin Laden, we knew where he was. We could have just taken out that whole building. We could have just made a pancake of that whole compound. We didn't. Why? Because there were a lot of people in that building. So look at what we did, right? And we are hardly a beacon of humanity, especially in that region. We flew the SEAL Team 6 helicopters in silent, right? We'll land outside, send people into the building to actually shoot them. We didn't just flatten the building, right? So yes, there's this thing called counterterrorism. What he's saying is just so absurd. We are Israel's main ally. They are our aircraft carrier in the region. That's RFK's own words. They have at their disposal the most state-of-the-art intelligence capabilities known to man. We would give them access to all of our IC tools so that they could run targeted counterterrorism operations to take out the people who they have to take out if they wanted to do it that way. There's no reason they couldn't do it that way. Instead, they're choosing to level Gaza and plant Israeli flags in craters that used to be neighborhoods. It's just so patently obvious what they're doing. And so he says, what could you do? You have the United States intelligence agencies at your disposal. You can't do a more targeted job than this. It's absurd on its face. Absolutely absurd.
Well, that's it. The purpose is the complete displacement of the Palestinian people. We know this. This just leaked that Netanyahu wants to thin out the population. It's also leaked that the United States is playing along, that the United States is reaching out to Arab neighbors with bribes, essentially aid money, to get them to take Palestinians. They're trying to get them out of that region, and it's just a continuation, as we'll discuss a little bit during the Bill Maher segment. All these Zionists will tell you that, Israel has no partner in peace. The Arabs, they've rejected peace again and again. It is not true. It is not true. It is demonstrably not true. It is the Israelis who have refused to make peace again and again, have walked away from negotiations every time they were close. And under Netanyahu, that is escalated to a whole other level, which again, who funded Hamas? Who propped up Hamas in order to undermine the Palestinian Authority? That was Israel. That was Netanyahu, because they did not want a legitimate Palestinian state. And by the time Clinton left office, that was seriously on the table. They were as close as they had ever gotten. Netanyahu did not want it, so he propped up Hamas to destroy the legitimacy of the Palestinian cause. And here we are. And RFK, does he know that? Who knows? I mean, he's a fucking lying scumbag screwball. It's hard to say what come out of his mouth that's just because he's a fucking psycho. How much of it is because he's a degenerate liar? How much of it he actually believes? Who knows? But, that we were way out ahead on. As soon as we really looked into RFK, I think you said it. The more you look into him, the less there is to like.
Indeed.
Where you go in a targeted way, you create a wedge between Hamas and the civilian population. And we see how this works in the past, because previously in Israeli society, when there were pathways to peace that were on the table, where the Palestinian civilian population felt that they had a chance at negotiating some sort of a peaceful outcome, guess what? Support for Hamas falls off a cliff. It's almost a one-to-one relationship with the more brutal the response from the Israelis, the more support for radicalism that there is.
You can filibuster.
I'm not filibustering. You asked me a question. I'm trying to answer it.
I think you're filibustering. You're not answering the question. You're saying drive a wedge. Well, of course, Israel.
She answered that. That was a very thorough answer.
And, you know, I'm betting he knows what the word means and knows how badly he's abusing it right now.
Yeah, exactly. He said, "What would you do to take out Hamas?" And she said, you do targeted raids the way we did on the Bin Laden compound. There's only 25,000 Hamas members. And Israel's saying what? They killed about 5,000 so far. And that's probably not a trustworthy number. But that means what? 15,000 innocent people have been killed. So at this rate, what are you going to have to kill? 80,000 to take out the whole thing? Right? I mean, it's just like, it's just so monstrous. And what she said there did address what he was saying. She was not filibustering.
Trying to drive a wedge.
By offering some other path that's not terrorism,
what is that
not
path?
violence.
What is that path?
It's a path to two-state solution or some sort of a just and lasting peace.
And the Palestinians not only have rejected that, but Hamas, its whole purpose was the reason that Hamas was able to get all this popular support and take over was because of its opposition to any negotiation.
Hamas just came out and said that they support Israel's PLO and recognize Israel's right to exist. On the other hand, you have the ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the UK saying we will absolutely no to a two-state solution.
I just cannot let you tell that's just not true.
Ismail
Haniyeh was on TV on Al Jazeera yesterday saying we're going to do this again and again and again. We will never negotiate.
Which we covered and which is disgusting. But there's no, what about the fact, but hold on. What about the fact that Netanyahu and his government have said absolutely no. They built up Hamas to try to thwart any sort of Palestinian statehood.
I'm not defending Netanyahu, and I don't co-sign what Netanyahu and Likud do. Israel is a divided country. 80 or 20% of the population are on the street demonstrating against Netanyahu. What I'm saying is Hamas is a criminal enterprise.
Sure.
Yes. The Palestinian, and you talk about solutions for the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people are arguably the most pampered people by international aid organizations.
Are you kidding me? No, even before this war, 78% of people in Gaza said they had, not enough food to eat.
Right. And why is that? Why are you blaming it?
They're the most pampered people in terms of international aid. First of all, I mean, to let that slip out of your mouth, given the fact that 20,000 of them have been slaughtered, is quite low. Second, though, even if I take that point, even if I grant you that, right? And I know the chat is going to be like, what? What do you mean grant him that? Take it easy, all right? Thought experiment here. Sam Harris style, okay? Why would they be the most pampered people on earth by international aid organizations? Could it be because they're in prison for no reason and have no access to basic goods and services and have no political or economic autonomy to actually create a society on their own terms? Could that be why they are so reliant on international aid? You think it's because they're locked in a concentration camp for no reason? So even if I accept what you just said, why is that? Why do they need all that help? Because they are being occupied. They are being imprisoned illegally.
Right. Because Israel is controlling their food, their water, and their fuel. How are they supposed to have an economy? How are they supposed to have an economy on their own? And just
50% unemployment. I think 80% of their economy is foreign aid. I could be wrong about that second stat, but I don't think so.
They're not even allowed to take their boats out.
No, they can't fish.
They can't even properly fish their waters. Like, what do you? They risk being blown out of the water when they go fishing. What are you talking? Pampered. How do you even say something like that at a moment when you've got a 60 to 70%? 60 would be the Israeli number. 70 is probably the realistic number. Women and children being slaughtered right now. How do you call these people pampered? It's. I've said it before. Like his arguments on Israel are circa 1975. This would have been normal. It is one of the most remarkable things about this moment, if there's any hope here, I came up in a time where the Israel propaganda, you can't even imagine. I remember they did a TV movie, A Woman Called Golda, all about Golda Meir standing up against the Arab savages. I mean, that was the general take on Israel, and you really saw nothing to contradict that in the media at all. But clearly that has shifted.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, let's take some super chats. Russell, check your phone and let me know what you think about that idea. Just shoot me a text. Derek P, thanks for the $5. Saw Tucker fly fishing wearing a Chase shirt. Enjoying the show, guys. Thanks. It's up to you. We'll do it however you want, Russ. Mayoral Rose, thanks for the $4.99. Ha ha ha. Russell, Siddhartha Carlson, love you both. Mayoral Rose, New Hampshire. Yes, that was a good one. Okay. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Make Israel Syria again. In those Ottoman Empire days, Jews and Arabs got along fine. Yep. That's what you hear. You hear a lot of rabbis talk about that too. Some of the rabbis that Russ interviewed at the protest. Like the Palestinians, where are the homeless to go? Yes, indeed. Thank you, Pete Sweet. China Shill, Tucker is so scripted, it hurts. I thought that his interviews have been pretty good. Yeah, I think his interviews have been pretty good because he has a curiosity about him that I think a lot in his space don't.
I saw a lot of. I saw some. Predictably, we have some people who really hate Tucker, and I can't blame you for a lot of positions he took over the years, but I think you have to make allowances for people's views to evolve and change. I've said many times, man. I went into 2016 supporting Hillary. That is how much my views have changed.
That's correct.
I'll make a lot of allowances for another person to go on a journey as I think he is. And people always throw around when all else fails. Oh, it's to make money. It's to make money. If he just wanted to make money, the easiest thing he could have done was whatever they wanted him to do at Fox.
Right, whatever you want. Exactly.
That's the way to make money. Not doing what he's doing now, fucking around with us YouTube scrubs over here.
Yeah, exactly. You-hoops. Like that. You-hoops. That's a good name for a YouTube audience.
When we open our alternative platform.
Yeah,
you-hoops. Call it you-hoops.
Yeah. Cool Blue, thanks for the $4.99 DINK video. There is no ideal life. You can occasionally, wonder what your life would be if you had a different one. The DINK couple are young. Yeah, I mean,
it is true. There's no ideal life, and yeah, I saw some people in chat say it depends on the person. Of course, it depends on the person. I am telling you, it is a very rare person that will end up happier childless than having had children. It's some people. It's rare. Most people will regret it.
We'll see. We'll see when I get older. Tusker, thanks for the $2.
Well, you're not going to know the difference.
No, yeah. Well, look, I mean, I won't regret it. What I mean is when we get older, we'll see where we're all at. Increase cowbell by 0.3 decibels, and it's perfect. Thank you, Tusker. Appreciate that. I'll have to give that note to Jake. Round of applause for Jake again in the Rumble, Field and Rumble rants, helping us out tech-wise tonight. Where's Skill? Thanks for the $5. Tucker is like the Buddha. I think the lib who runs Post Left Watch just had a stroke. Thanks for the follow, Keaton. Yeah, I followed you back, Where's Skill, earlier today. No problem. Thanks for following me. Yeah, man, that Post Left Watch, that guy, it was funny. Maybe
a guy who needs kids.
I don't want to fuck with my screen share now because my tech is a little wonky. Maybe I'll put this up in the Rumble after show. But what did that fucking Post Left Watch guy tweet out? He tweeted out something. He said, here, I'll read it for you guys. He tweets out the two guys on the screen because he clipped a segment of us on Jimmy talking about Alex Jones. The two guys on the screen are the hosts of the show Do Dissidents. Their recent guests on their show have been Jimmy Dore, Glenn Greenwald, Katie Halper, Matt Taibbi, Norman Finkelstein, Nick Cruz, and Danny Haifong. That's all you need to know about them. And so I quote tweeted him and I said, correct. yes, that's right. I mean, that's pretty good ad copy for the show.
Yeah, is he trying to get us subscribers?
Yeah, you trying to get us interest? I mean, you just read down. I didn't even realize what an all-star lineup we've had recently. I'm like,
I mean,
Dan, you're right.
I read that, I would subscribe immediately.
Danny, yeah, of course. Man, we've been crushing it lately. Wow, I didn't even realize that. That guy's quite the character. Dan Richmond, thanks for the $10. Problem is, Keaton, many have kids and raise them poorly. That hurts society. Utmost respect for people who want to parent, but too many care mostly about the pregnancy. P.S. 50 years old, married, no kids. Yeah, you do you. Well, hey, look, you're no kids, married, right? Okay, so you're a dink, and you got the Iron Maiden suite. You probably couldn't afford the Iron Maiden suite if you had 5 kids. So there
exactly.
you go. So you do whatever you want to do.
You'd be out in the parking lot.
Yeah, or up in the nosebleeds.
Up in the nosebleeds.
drinking a 24-ounce, Keystone Light. Sounds like these dink hypers never heard of child labor, more kids. Yeah, more income.
That's another point.
That's another point too.
I just hung all the pictures I brought back from India. If I had some kids, I wouldn't have had to get up on that ladder.
That's true. You'd have had some help. Yeah. How times have changed, says Mac Truck. Jimmy Dore now hangs out with Tucker Carlson. RFK Jr. went from Maverick, sorta, but not really. And Bill Maher is a walking anal fistula. Thank you, Mac Truck. Appreciate that. Very much enjoyed your frank discussion on family, children, life choices, and regrets. Thanks, Bonzo Beans. Gives this show a very unique and authentically human profile, in my opinion. Yeah, that's why I wanted to do that one, actually. I was excited for that one.
Yeah, I thought that was we haven't done anything like that in a while.
Yeah, we haven't done anything like that in a long time. We've just been following the news. T-Bone 316, thanks for the $5. What are roof knockers good for when it's already been declared that about half the bombs are unguided? You guys rock. Yeah, there you go. Good point.
Thank you
for that donation. For Russell's C1, C7 vertebrae fund, hit the music. Yes, indeed. Listen to Knock on the Door by Phil Oakes. Yeah, Phil Oakes, one of the greats, of course. Thanks, DC. Franklin Warsham, thanks for the $4.99. Thank you guys very much for the donations tonight. That really helps a lot. So we all appreciate the super chats. But once again, if you're hitting us up 4 or 5 times a show with super chats, become a patron. It won't cost you any money. Just give us one fewer super chat and throw a few bucks in the patron pool, and you get a lot of perks. So this way, you don't spend any extra money, and you help us permanently support the show. But thank you guys very much for all of the super chat love and Rumble rant love this evening. Big crowd in here. Please make sure you hit that like button, everybody. And don't forget, post-show Q&A on Rumble coming up pretty soon. Got one more segment to do. They've gone from Fiddler on the Roof to Knocker on the Roof to now to No Knocker on the Roof. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, Bill Maher mentions Fiddler on the Roof in his brilliant monologue, actually. Vaquero Supreme, RFK Jr. indirectly shows respect for Max Blumenthal and Norm Finkelstein because he won't dare have a conversation with them. Yeah, good point. He thought Crystal Ball would be a cakewalk. Yep. Indeed. Well, on the stuff that, we're not allowed to mention here, on the medical issues, that's his wheelhouse and not hers. So he got the better of her there. She didn't want to go after him there. She didn't want to have a real debate there. This has been in the news for 2 months. It's very obvious what's happening. I don't know why he thought he was going to be able to bullshit his way through that under these circumstances, because he certainly wasn't. Definitely came off looking pretty lousy. Black Freud, thanks for the $5. Methinks Jr. is just trying to make a name for himself in the Kennedy saga. Not a good actor. Give him the hook, please. Thank you for that very much. Alrighty, folks, we have some more super chats that we will get to in a little bit, but we have one more segment on the evening. Bill Maher has a new rule. New rule is to the people of Gaza, you're conquered, get over it. That's basically the thesis of his new rule, but he puts a little more meat on the bones. Let's see this. This is sped up a little bit. We had a lot of long videos this evening, and as you can see, we're already running a bit over.
Do you see all the other victims of genocide complaining?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. They don't all complain, okay? Here he is.
And the new rule, I know it's supposed to be that magical time of year, but maybe what we all really need right now is a good dose of realism. I see a lot of nativity scenes when I'm out, as you always do before Christmas, and I can't help thinking about where that manger
in
really
the rich
is.
neighborhoods
It's
of
in the
LA. Sorry, this reminds me of the conversation. I don't go to Skid Row. That's the thing in Los Angeles. You see a lot of nativity scenes in these very rich areas. Go through a lot of working class areas, you don't see nativity scenes. You need a big lawn for a nativity scene.
Right.
They're kind of expensive to create. You know, I see all these nativity scenes. Wow, what a guy.
West Bank on Palestinian
Sorry, I shouldn't have butted in there. Just had to mention that.
Christmas, and I can't help thinking about where that manger really is. It's in the West Bank on Palestinian land controlled by the Palestinian Authority. In 1950, the little town of Bethlehem was 86% Christian. Now it's overwhelmingly Muslim. And that's my point tonight. Things change. To 2.3 billion Christians, there can be no more sacred site than where their Savior was born. But they don't have it anymore. And yet no Crusader army has geared up to take it back. Things
This
change.
time.
Countries, boundaries,
Right, exactly.
empires. Palestine was under the Ottoman Empire for 400 years, but today an ottoman is something you put under your feet.
All right, I'm going to risk looking like an idiot in front of our biggest live audience ever. Why was that a funny joke? I mean, I know what an ottoman is, but why was is it something you put under your feet? Why was that a punchline? Am I missing something?
I mean, maybe. I mean, what don't you get? I mean, it's not that funny, but you get the joke, right?
I guess.
An ottoman is something you put under your feet, the piece of furniture. You know, the
Right.
piece of furniture. Right. So
now it carries
it's
no
not
weight. Now
an
it's something
empire anymore. Now it's something you put your feet on.
Now it's a piece of furniture. Got it. Wow.
Yep, that's the whole gag. That's the bit. That's the
That
bit.
went right over my head. I guess I'm too stupid for that one. That's a hilarious joke. Wow, what a team of writers he's got there. You know, maybe he's right. Maybe he didn't need. Maybe he could have done a show without the writers. If that's the best his writers could do, that was a hell of a joke.
I mean, fair enough. He should actually use that joke to make an argument for deunionizing his shop.
It's like the least funny joke I've ever seen in the history of late night TV. I mean, that is about the lamest joke I've ever heard on one of these shows.
Maybe they're using the lame jokes to distract from the horrific thesis.
Maybe he's trying to be folksy. I'll make a lame joke to be folksy because now I'm about to advocate for the displacement and mass murder of 1,000 children a week.
Well, yeah. I mean, Custer was big on that. He cracked a couple dad jokes.
Right. He liked to warm up. Butter him up with humor first. Right, a couple dad jokes just to start.
The city of Byzantium became the city of Constantinople, became Istanbul. Not everybody liked it, but you can't keep arguing the call forever. The Irish had the entire island to themselves, but the British were starting an empire, and, well, the Irish lost their tip.
Another zinger. Man, who wrote this monologue? Give this guy a raise. Wow. What a comic genius he's got writing this one. Holy shit.
The same person that wrote the Rappaport Dumbledore sketch.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They flew someone in from the Israeli comedy
what is it?
show.
Eretz Hebron or whatever the fuck that show is, the number one comedy show in Israel. Yeah, that's who's writing this one. Damn.
They blew each other up over it for 30 years, but eventually everybody comes to an accommodation, except the Palestinians. Was it unjust that even a single Arab family was forced?
Unfucking
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Unreal.
To move upon the founding of the Jewish state? Yes, but it's also not rare. Happening all through history, all over the world, and mostly what people do is make the best of it. After World War II, 12 million ethnic Germans got shoved out of Russia and Poland and Czechoslovakia because being German had become kind of unpopular.
Yeah, why? Because Germany had committed one of the most heinous crimes in the history of humanity. And it's the Palestinian people who were made to pay for those crimes by giving up their land. If the Jews needed a state, if we needed a state and you gave us a quarter of Germany, this would be a very different conversation, be a very different world.
Well, it's very interesting because he talks about, I believe at one point in this monologue, all of the Jews that after the founding of Israel, after the Zionists invaded the region, were expelled from Arab lands. The equivalent here of the Germans really would be that, where the members of this group that had invaded and occupied and committed atrocities were expelled from the surrounding territories in retaliation. A historical equivalent to what he's describing here would be the Jews being pushed out of the West Bank, Gaza, and general Palestinian territory, at the very least, to 1967 borders, and perhaps more than that. And that's all I'll say in East Berlin.
There we go. We're going to be in West Berlin
Speaking
soon, folks.
of Germany.
After party on Rumble.
1 million Greeks were shoved out of Turkey in 1923, 1 million Ghanaians out of Nigeria in 1983, almost 1 million French out of Algeria in 1962. Nearly 1 million Syrian refugees moved to Germany 8 years ago. Was that a perfect fit? And no one knows more
All
about
right,
being
this is
pushed
just
off land
very
than the Jews.
weird because he's naming, not in every case, but in some cases like Algeria, he's naming colonial powers being displaced from the places they invaded.
Right.
As somehow being equivalent to what is being done to the Palestinians.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you
I
talking
caught that
about?
too.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, whoever wrote this, not much of a sense of humor or history, turns out. Lame jokes and even lamer historical critique.
Like the French are the
being
victims of
Yeah,
Algeria?
right, exactly. They were
Like,
driven
what
out of
are you
Algeria.
talking about?
Yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? Exactly.
About being pushed off land than the Jews, including being almost wholly kicked out of every Arab country they once lived in. Yes, TikTok fans.
Oh, is that all after 1948? What happened in 1948, I wonder, that caused that result?
Right.
Hang on a second. I thought Israel made Jews safer. I thought that was making Jews safer. So why is it that all these Jews get expelled after the Zionist dream is fulfilled? Wasn't it making Jews safer? Wasn't it? Apparently not. Not in all of these countries where they seem to have been welcome. They stayed there for centuries, for millennia. Doesn't
Seems
seem
like
like
things
they
were
wanted
better
to
off
leave.
when they had furniture to put under their feet.
Seems that way. That way. When the Ottoman was both an empire and a very comfortable footrest.
And a footrest. Yeah.
And a
See,
footrest.
exactly.
You can have both. It's not either or, Bill.
See, we improvised that joke. We didn't even have to write it. We just came up with that top of our head. That's how
Boom.
good we are.
Quick.
Yeah.
Ethnic cleansing happened both ways. In Fiddler on the Roof, the family
Ethnic
is always...
cleansing happens both ways. I mean, what more do you need to see, folks? This is what I mean. Like, even when they lose the argument, they'll just so brazenly admit what they're doing.
Yeah, when colonizers are ejected from the places they colonize, that's ethnic cleansing? What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, yeah, there's that too, but he just said Israel's committing. He just said it. They're doing ethnic cleansing. And it goes both ways, so get over it. Right? All's fair in love and war. That's what he's saying. He's just saying suck it, basically. That's the title of the monologue. Yeah.
Well, this is at core. That's what I was saying with RFK. When you push Zionists hard enough, this is what they start saying. It's just that Maher is such a fucking arrogant prick. He's stripping off all the veneer and just saying it completely directly, not couching it in language or it's complicated. He's just straight out saying, yeah, ethnic cleansing, part of history, deal with it. Why do you have to be the ones that complain about it?
Yeah, just incredible.
Always moving to stay one step ahead of the Cossacks, but they deal with it. When they're leaving Anatevka, they say, hey, it wasn't so great anyway. Come on. Like other countries don't have roofs you could fiddle on? Now.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how it went down. The Jews just kind of took it in stride. The pogroms were just something they kind of had a sense of humor about. Well, I guess we're going to have to move out of the place we've lived for centuries as the Cossacks burn down our villages. That's exactly how the Jews handled that.
Yeah, and look, we're all about gallows humor here. Dark humor is part of our brand. But if you're comfortable going on television and laughing it up at a monologue like this. Talk about dinks having regrets later in life. You're going to have some regrets pretty soon, I think. You're not going to be very proud of this footage for too long, if you have any conscience whatsoever.
Come on. Like other countries don't have roofs you could fiddle on?
Oh, real funny.
Now, that's not how they really felt, but they were coping. They coped, because sometimes that's all you can do. History is brutal, and humans are not good people. History's sad and full of wrongs, but you can't make them unhappen, because a paraglider isn't a time machine. People get moved, and yes, colonized. Nobody was a bigger colonizer than the Muslim army that swept out of the Arabian desert and took over much of the world in a single century. And they didn't do it by...
Yeah, what are the dates on that? 632 to 720. Talk about the woke college professors wanting to litigate past atrocities to evade having to litigate current ones. Pretty woke of Bill Maher right here. 632 to 720. Those are the dates on that.
Yes, this is the core of this line of argument. This is just the most brazen, most honest, and fully articulated version of this argument. But this is the core argument you will get down to when you push Zionists a little bit. Why did everyone else get to commit atrocities? Why did America get to kill all the Indians and take the land? Why don't we get to kill all the Palestinians and take the land? Because we like to think that human sensibilities have evolved and that now we think that's wrong. And we try not to commit genocides in broad daylight to steal people's land anymore.
It's kind of the whole point of talking politics and doing political content.
Having the UN.
Right. yeah, exactly.
Asking. There's a reason Saudi Arabia's flag is a sword. Kosovo was the cradle of Christian Serbia. Then it became Muslim. They fought a war about it in the 90s, but stopped. They didn't keep it going for 75 years. There were deals on the table to share the land called Palestine in 1947, 93, 95, 98, 2000, 2008, and East Jerusalem could have been the capital of a Palestinian state that today might look more like Dubai than Gaza. Arafat was offered 95% of the West Bank and said no. The Palestinian people
that is
should
total
know
bullshit. That is total bullshit. This is something else that the Zionists will very often fall back on. It is not true. So this is a great article. I would really recommend checking it out. I just want to read a couple of things from it because I want you to be armed when you hear this from the Zionists. It is one of the most common things they will push back with, that Israel has no partner for peace, that the Arabs and the Palestinians only want to wipe Israel off the map. How can you make peace with this? So this article by John Swartz, this is in The Intercept. All the times Israel has rejected peace with Palestinians. Israel prefers endless conflict to a Palestinian state. And he goes, the whole article, 1948 all the way to the present, he illustrates and well documents all the times that Israel rejected a two-state solution. So, sorry about that. Following the 1967 war, the international consensus gradually came to be that peace would require the creation of a Palestinian state. At the same time, the PLO accepted internally that the overall war was over and they had lost. They were therefore willing to make peace in return for a state on the 22% of Palestine constituting Gaza and the West Bank. A 1976 draft resolution at the UN Security Council called for this and stated that Israel should, quote, withdraw from all the Arab territories occupied since June 1967, unquote. The PLO supported the resolution. Every country on the Security Council except the U.S., including the UK, France, Italy, Japan, and Sweden, voted for it. But Israel had no interest in it, and the U.S. vetoed it. Instead of encouraging further moderation from the PLO, Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982 with, according to Ziv Maoz, an Israeli historian who served in the military during 3 of the country's wars, several goals. The first was to destroy the PLO and hence Palestinian nationalism. Now, this jumps ahead a little bit in the article to the continued negotiations that grew out of Clinton's efforts to secure peace before he left office. The Israelis and the Palestinians kept talking in late January 2001 in Taba, Egypt. It was not the Palestinians, but Barak, who terminated, that was the prime minister of Israel, but Barak, who terminated the discussions on January 27th, a few weeks before Israeli elections. The negotiators issued a joint statement that the two sides had, quote, never been closer to reaching an agreement, and it is thus our shared belief that the remaining gaps could be bridged with the resumption of negotiations, unquote. But Barak was defeated by Ariel Sharon, who did not want a Palestinian state and did not restart the talks. The Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs declared that the Clinton parameters are not binding on the new government to be formed in Israel. So part of what, and the article gets into this also, Bill Clinton has been lying about this for decades. He has been lying, telling people, along with his lovely wife, that Arafat walked away from the peace deals. Not true. Not true. So I would highly recommend check out that Intercept article. Arm yourself with facts when you hear this from Zionists.
Yeah, because that's a very, very common talking point. I mean, we saw RFK go there too, right? In the newest Breaking Points piece. Almost done with Bill Maher, but we can't end this segment without getting the money line here. So let's go back for just a few seconds.
And the useful idiots on college campuses who are there.
Hold on.
Arafat was offered 95% of the West Bank and said no. The Palestinian people should know your leaders and the useful idiots on college campuses who are their allies are not doing you any favors by keeping alive the river to the sea myth. I mean, where do you think Israel is going? Spoiler alert, nowhere.
Yeah, he has Rappaport in the audience there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he likes that. Ha! Woo! There you have it. Calling these kids useful idiots. I mean, it's just, you live in another world, man. You're not wired the way I am. I mean, that's it. I mean, what do you say to that? You look at this groundswell of activism of these kids who are, you know, really in the case of these Ivy League kids, man, and, you know, I'm not one to stick up for the Ivy Leagues. I don't think the Ivy League should really exist, if you want to be honest. But you know, they're getting these job offers rescinded. They're having all of these very, very wealthy people and organizations threaten to basically, you know, scrap the entire campus. And they go out there and do it. They're fucking useful idiots. Like they are 100 times as more independent minded than Bill Maher, and certainly the fucking shitload of morons he has in that audience who are laughing and clapping at all this nonsense.
Yeah, and they said South Africa wasn't going anywhere, and that's as far as I'm going to go in East Berlin.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's take some.
I mean,
super
it didn't
chats.
go anywhere, but the political situation has changed.
Right, the political situation has changed, and you know, speaking of from the river to the sea, it was the Zionists who coined "from the river to the sea" to mean the displacement of the Palestinian people.
Right.
When the ceasefire protesters chant "from the river to the sea," all they mean is the people of Gaza, the West Bank, will have equal rights on land from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. It's because Israel will not grant them those equal rights that they choose to interpret it as this like violent eliminationist call to action. No, it's not. All you have to do is grant equal rights. Single democratic state. Boom. That's it. It's so easy.
Well, this is something else that that article gets into. Ben Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, when the UN was trying to force Israel to negotiate originally, it was going to be about 50-50. Originally, it was like 72% of the land would be the Palestinians. Then it was going to be 48%. They tried to negotiate, and there's a letter of Ben Gurion saying, no, you know what? If we negotiate, then the Arabs are going to demand something from us. Let's just wait them out.
Right.
That's always been the tactic. Obfuscate, deny, refuse to negotiate, blame the Arabs. And meanwhile, their goal has always been, as you can see from the map, to gradually take away Palestinian land and absorb more and more of it into Israel. That's been the goal from the beginning.
Indeed, of course. Folks, we're going to take some super chats and Rumble rants and then wrap this show up. But don't forget, Q&A after the show, rumble.com/do-dissidents. Patreon members, paid Substack subscribers, and paid Locals members will have call-in access to that show. Everyone else is invited to watch anyway. So if you're here watching on YouTube after the show, go to rumble.com/do-dissidents. And please hit that follow button over on Rumble. That's the main point of why we do this as well. That's another perk of doing the Q&As, is to build our Rumble following out a bit. But we got quite a few super chats to get to, and so let's not waste any time. Sparky, thanks for the $10. RFK Jr. is a quick study and relies on this to wing it, leaving him vulnerable to the bias of whomever briefs him at the last minute. Campaign infiltrator Rabbi Shmuley briefs him on Palestine, Israel.
Yeah, he's a 70-year-old man. Give him. He can take responsibility for his actions. Why fucking Shmuley is fucking Grima Wormtongue in the Lord of the Rings.
Exactly. Pete Sweet.
That's a callback to a show I did like 3 days ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Kurt made that reference with me.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Pete Sweet, thanks for the $5. If RFK Jr. doesn't win the presidency, has promising career as a used car salesman, yeah, skilled politician, was skeptical, now think has a good chance to win. He's still in single digits. I mean, he's got to get ballot access. He's got a long road to hoe there. But his polling is significant for a third party candidate. That's for sure. MCFC, biggest reason why I stopped supporting his campaign. I assume you mean RFK, but thank you for that, 1999. That's very generous of you.
You know, it was funny. When I went to Matt Taibbi's event in Brooklyn, somebody had an RFK table set up there.
I believe that because of the speech thing. I mean, that's a big cause of his, except for this, except for Israel. Oddly enough, big supporter of Bill Ackman, who is determined to get that Harvard president fired. I mean, you think if you're a billionaire, you think of all the people you can help with your money, all the ways you can spend your time to make people's lives better. No, I'm going to go on a crusade to cancel the president of Harvard for not cracking down on anti-Israel speech enough. That's how he spends his money.
Yeah, I can't remember. I was listening to something. I can't remember what it was. It was during one of my middle of the night wake ups. But one of the things I was listening to was pointing out, like, Harvard, between all of its investments and endowments, Harvard itself, I'm pretty sure they said has like $100 billion. And they were saying for people like Bill Ackman, it's very frustrating because even with the amount of money he has, they can tell him to go get his fucking shine box.
I've heard, and this is not a current figure, so it could be obsolete, but I remember hearing one point, Harvard University is the second wealthiest institution in the world next to the Catholic Church.
I buy it.
That's what I've heard. Yep.
Yeah, and they were basically saying, like, this is actually old stuff because in the past, he had tried to get Harvard to do various things and they didn't do it. So he has a grudge against this president. And they have enough money that they can tell him to go fuck himself. That's the only reason. Once I heard that, I said, well, you know what? Maybe they can withstand this attack of the Zionist billionaires if they have that much money.
They probably can. Zaldivar, thanks for the $2. Maybe Mossad has Epstein intel on RFK, hence lunacy.
That came up in another part of the video. This doesn't mean anything with RFK, but I will say he answered it well. He handled that question well.
Nailed it. MCFC. Nailed it. MCFC. Preach. Thank you. Tusker, thanks for the $5. Appreciate that very much. Back from the road. Thanks for the $1.99. I'm 30 minutes back, but welcome to Comrade Tucker. Thank you, Back from the road. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's give MCFC a cowbell, since he's been two $20 super chats and now one $10, and I'm pretty sure he's given some others. There we go. Nice, some cowbell love for MCFC. Thank you very much. Don't forget the natural gas reserves just off the coast, worth millions. Yep, it's always a factor for sure. Golden Sun, thanks for the $5. Guessing Epstein or Hollywood got the dirty on RFK Jr. You know, I think it's just a matter of the guy's fucking wrong. Like, I think that's probably
I agree.
it.
I
Like, he
agree.
just seems to be quite wrong. I mean, you don't know, but that's what it seems like.
Especially
to me.
because these politics, I've said this all along, these would have been the politics that everyone had.
Yeah, they're
on
very
Israel
common.
when
Yeah.
he was during his formative political years.
Yep. There was a time when that was very, very mainstream, and they're still mainstream enough to the point
Right.
where, like, the policy, you wouldn't know they're not mainstream judging by our policy, right?
If he were a member of the Democratic or Republican Party in good standing with these views, it wouldn't even stand out.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't give him a hard time about this. They wouldn't run him out of town over this. Not at all.
Not at all.
JC the Third, thanks for the $2. I've seen better heads on lettuce than RFK Jr. Man, the you hooper. What did you call him? You hoops.
You hoops.
You hoops really turned on RFK. I remember there was a time where we got a lot of shit for criticizing RFK. No more. Seems like your van might soon be ahead, says Ben May.
Got it.
We got it. Yeah, we got a lot of. Oh yeah,
we
by the way,
already
hit
got
that
the van.
subscribe button. Hit that
Even
subscribe
got a
button.
little surfboard on the side.
What are we at here? We're at 26,759. Beautiful. Hit that subscribe button, everybody, on YouTube, and hit that follow button over on Rumble, please. And thank you. Tusker, donation for KO. Thank you, Tusker. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Okay. Wow. Got quite a few more here. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Dad was the 12th of 13 kids. Wow. More kids, more farm
Wow.
laborers. I am the 4th of 6 kids. More workers for Dad's drugstore. Beautiful. Well, yeah, you guys know how to do it.
The way to do it.
That's the way to go, my friend. Kinky, you are missing the fact that Bill Maher hires regular laughers and applauders. They're same people every week. Does he have paid audience? I don't know. My friend went to a Bill Maher taping once, and it was just like free, just like, you go to the Jay Leno show back in the day.
Well, when you're in LA, like because they got to fill out these studio audiences, you see them handing out flyers for that all the time. Like come to the Bill Maher show or come to the Tonight Show or whatever.
Yeah, I have not heard that. I think it's certainly possible. It's also possible that there are enough idiots in LA who actually think that's funny.
I'm not a fan of that piece of real estate.
No, but you will be out there nonetheless in 2 weeks. Hey, Russell's going to be out in LA in 2 weeks. Russell's hosting the Jimmy Dore Show from the 8th to the 15th. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the $4.99. I bet all of Maher's audience are paid DMC guffaws. Or they're just
Seems
dumb.
to be a running
Possible.
theme tonight.
But maybe.
Yeah, I've talked to Jimmy about it. We're just covering bass fishing and mango while I'm there.
Yeah, exactly.
Little anime.
Khaled and Cat Bless, thanks for the $2. At first, I thought Russell was being dramatic when he said RFK was a psycho. I was wrong. Sorry, Russ. There you go. Beautiful. Thank you. Dave Morrison Show Care. Hey, Dave. Chag Samich. Missed you guys since I told. Oh, Yeg Samech. That's what that is. Sorry. That was a Borat reference. Missed you guys since I took a mental break. Great show tonight, Russ. I dated 2 women who were childless by choice. One was a happy Disney millennial, and the other was miserable AF. Well, what are you going to do, as they say? But thanks for that, David. Appreciate it. Good to see you again. AJMQL1. Oh, you have another link. Jewish Chronicle, had Islam not come along, Jewry in the West would have declined and become an Oriental cult. Did you have a link there? But I guess you couldn't post it anyway.
That's interesting.
MCFC, Bill Maher Ottoman subtext joke written by staff in crayons. Yeah, that was quite the fucking joke. That's like one of those jokes where you think you didn't get it because what you're, Like it's what the joke itself is just so bad. You're like, am I missing it, or is that it? Is it just that unfunny?
I just want to mention while I'm thinking of it, because I mentioned manga. So me and Keaton are both going to go see Godzilla -1, and we're going to do a segment on Wednesday. We are going to review it. It's a very rare. We haven't done a movie review in ages together. Like I did Barbie, but you didn't. You weren't in on that.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that.
You weren't there for that.
My kid was sick that night. Otherwise, I would have. I saw it.
Right.
Yeah.
For the first time in history.
See, if I were a dink, I'd have gotten to review Barbie.
If you were a dink, you could have
I
reviewed
missed
Barbie, and your life would have been more complete for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Much more complete than the joy of fatherhood. For the first time in history, 2 Japanese movies are at the top of the box office. That's never happened before. So we're going to review Godzilla, and we're going to look at what that phenomenon means for the decline of American culture.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I love monster movies. Tusker, thanks for the $5. Exactly, Keaton. Why are the Palestinians responsible for the crimes and genocide of the Europeans? Exactly. Why should they bear the repercussions? Exactly. So I said the exact same thing. Dan in the Outback, long-time watcher, first-time super chatter. Well, thank you, Dan. Is this your first time super chatter? I think I remember your name. You have a pretty memorable avatar there. Maybe I've seen you in the chat before.
And in the Outback? I've seen that before.
I think I've seen you before.
I'm pretty sure.
RFK is another POS and a coward for not debating Max Blumenthal on Gaza and Israel. Blood is on his hands. Well, I knew he was going to duck out of that. I mean, if he had a hard time with Crystal, imagine him sitting across the table with Max Blumenthal. Because Max would have had that door knocker thing, or the roof knocker thing ready to go.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. You have to be a real expert to know how to fire
he's
back.
He's encyclopedic on the subject. He would have taken them apart piece by piece.
Exactly. Snork Y2K, thanks for the $5. Don't forget the American Indians forced Vikings to leave a previously unsettled part of Canada. Give America back to the Nordics. Thank you. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the $1.99, and the DNC Gaffars laugh way too loud. Yeah, that one guy was really a ham. He had that one guy in the audience. Oh, ho, 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 ho. He was really earning his money. Wanted to make sure they paid him at the end of the day. He didn't want to hear any bullshit. Yeah. You heard me there? Watching the Ukraine war, thanks, it's me, I'm here. And Israel genocide is hurting my heart so deeply. Undeniable that non-white people are more dehumanized than I ever imagined. Yeah, that's what I said. It's just racism at the end of the day, so much of this. And you see the power of it, you know.
Well, there was, if you didn't see it, I can't remember the name of the reporter, but when the Ukraine war broke out, one reporter said the soft part out loud and went on TV and said, you know, it's just amazing to see this happening to people who look like us.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. You usually don't see this amongst people who look like us.
We just bomb brown people.
Yep.
There's white people being bombed.
Gavrilo Princip did nothing wrong. Thanks for DC. Those $2. Sparky, thanks for the $10. So, bills in effect saying if the U.S. flattened Native American reservations now, deleting thousands of men, women, and children, it's okay because the U.S. conquered them over a century ago.
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you follow that logic, yeah.
Sounds right. Reagan called Menachem Begin in 1982 and told him to knock it off in Lebanon. Menachem stopped. Of course, that was before Israel bought Congress. Thank you, Sparky. How about a cowbell for Sparky? Bringing in a lot of super chats tonight as well. Thank you, Sparky, as always. Black Freud, thanks for the $4.99. How do you believe the Palestinian situation should be justly and humanely resolved?
I mean, there's that's a big question. I believe that. I mean, you're talking about what my ideal would be. What do I think should be done? Not what's going to be done, what should be done. The Palestinians should be granted the right to return. The entire territory encompassing historical Palestine, what's currently Israel, Gaza, the West Bank, should become one state with freedom and democracy for all. And it should no longer be a quote-unquote Jewish state.
Yep, and that's what John Kerry let slip as Secretary of State. He said Israel could either be a Jewish state or a democratic state. It can't be both.
Of course.
Not a radical. but that pissed Netanyahu off pretty good, as you can imagine.
Yes.
RFK Jr., and by the way, Black Freud, I second what Russell said there. RFK Jr. is pro Izzy, blew it for me, but not blue no matter who. Well, no, of course not. Of course not. Russell's writing in Dave Chappelle again. Looks like Chappelle's the front runner for the Dobular vote.
I mean, we have a platform now. Maybe we can get a draft Chappelle movement going.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we could
You got him on the show.
Yeah. Nabil Brahim, thanks for the $2, my friend. Appreciate you.
Kurt knows him.
Yes, he does. I heard same stale Israel propaganda 50 years ago. Yep, that Bill Maher. Well, that's more of that retro shit. Same thing.
Yep.
Same thing. Okay, DC, RFK Sr. was a more zealous Zionist, free Sirhan. Nabil Brahim, sorry if I went out of order here. Thanks for the $2. I got a little mixed up here. What's going on? Why am I think I have 4 more left. Pete Sweet, thanks for the $2. Just joking, RFK winning, doing everything to try. Thank you. Jay, can you just check? Let me know. I have 3 more.
He's getting tired of winning.
I have 3 more on my screen. Let me know if I'm missing anything. Could you do me a favor and just type in the chat whether I missed something, because I thought maybe I missed something. Yeah, see that one. Got that one already. Now 2. Tusker, thanks for the $10. You're going to be great on the JD show, Russell. Looking forward to it. What's the word on Keaton being able to join for most of the shows? Seems like that's on, right? I don't
think he knows a lot about bass fishing or manga.
Yeah, that's the only
That's
problem.
the problem, because we're covering that.
Yeah. No, I think I've got the green light to join on most of them. Okay, cool. Jake says he sees
I don't see why not. It should be me, Keaton, Kurt, and whatever guests I'm able to wrangle. That's something I got to talk to Jimmy about, how much latitude I have in that area.
Right. Yeah, because you're gonna want to start booking them now, probably.
Probably.
Can you all tell Jimmy that Trump isn't anti-war? I'll text him right now for you. How's that?
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, we got a super chat here. You should take a look at.
Yeah, we got to see. Collad and Cat Blessed book recommendation, Goliath by Matt Stoller. Interesting overview of the history of antitrust law and corporate monopolies. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
That sounds interesting.
Alrighty, folks. That's all for our super chats and Rumble rants, which means that is all for our show this evening. We will be back here on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. That is December 20th. Of course, we are going to be live on Rumble in about 5 minutes. So the way this works is we end the show here. We take a 5-minute intermission. We turn off the YouTube stream, and we are live exclusively on Rumble starting in just about 5 minutes. So go over to rumble.com/do dissidents if you're here watching on YouTube and you want to join us and hang out for the after party talkback. Callers will have, patrons and paid Substackers will have call-in access to that Q&A. Everyone else, feel free to submit written questions in the Rumble chat. If you put a Rumble rant on it, it makes it a lot easier for us to see it. If not, please address questions for us at do dissidents and then type your question or comment. So everybody, if you're here on YouTube and you want to hang out more, head over to Rumble. If not, we'll see you Wednesday. Please go to patreon.com/do dissidents to help support the show. Get us to that 500 paid member mark so we can afford to add a 4th stream. We will try our damnedest to make that all worth your while. Thank you all very, very much for this evening. We appreciate you all being here. And we will see everyone back here on Wednesday at 8 p.m. on the YouTube channel. If you want to come over to Rumble and hang out, just type that into your URL, and the live stream is the first one on the list of content over at rumble.com/do dissidents. Until whenever we see you again, be safe and be well, and thank you very much for this evening.
Did you eat? Jew? No, not did you eat, but Jew eat?
Courage.
Please clap.